Hi, this is Dan Gilvazan, and you're listening to the GeekCast Radio Network.
Jazz here, and I am so digging the GeekCast Radio Network.
Cliff Jumper, commence countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, ToyCast. Oh, yes. Listen in to the only toy podcast you will ever need.
Hello and welcome to an all-new generation of ToyCast as we get the origins of any and all toy fans that we can. I'm, of course, TFG and Mike, and joining me is Josh the FloorBurger. Hello, sir.
Hey! FloorBurger is in the grill.
There you go. Today's guest is a Little Mermaid loving, Teddy Ruxpin talking, puppet creating toy enthusiast who at this point has that old toy smell. It is Mr. Jason Devall.
I do smell at my age. This is true.
Damn it, you've made me cry twice in the last decade. I had to work in TNTS somewhere, so
yeah,
I did it as TNOS.
Yeah, I know. It's been a wild ride, man. It's been been fun.
Yes, it has. Obviously, Jason is created, along with Dave Draper, Toy World Order, Dave and Devall's Toys and Collectibles, which is still going.
Yes.
So there is
that new toy smell with Pixel Dan Erdley.
Mm-hmm.
Co-created Pop Culture Network with a whole gaggle of people.
Mm-hmm.
I've been around the block. I've been used and abused.
Uh-huh. Yep. Hey, at least I didn't call you a Pink Ranger this time.
That's true. That's true. This is true.
Well, but to be fair, what's wrong with being a Pink Ranger?
Oh, there's nothing wrong with
these days.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just put it this way. If I had a flying pterodactyl and a bow and arrow that I could pull out of thin air, I'd be down.
That's true.
I'd wear pink for that.
That's true. I would too. I'd be like, yeah.
So Kevin Costner in Power Rangers as the Waterworld character. Got it. All right, Josh, take it away with the first 5 questions.
Okay, we're going to take you back way, way back on this first question. Way, way, way back. So what is or was the first toy you remember having as a kid?
So it would have been 1980, late 83. I was in a Kmart with my grandfather here in Springfield, and I remember him telling me you can get 2 toys, so go pick something out. And there was an end cap, and on the end cap there was nothing but He-Man and Skeletor figures. Much like today's current retail situation where there's nothing but He-Man and Skeletor. But back in 83...
He-Man! Always He-Man!
He-Man and Skeletor were the only 2 figures you could find right away, and then they slowly, over the next couple of months back then, before 84, the Christmas season, they added a bunch more. But He-Man and Skeletor were the first 2 figures I ever owned. I ever remember getting. I have pictures of me getting toys at an earlier age, but He-Man and Skeletor are the 2 that I vividly remember holding both of them in my hand and my grandfather buying them for me.
Well, that's incredible. I mean, I think when that came out, there was just so much about those toys that I think I'd still buy them now. I mean, I did just recently buy He-Man and Skeletor about a year ago now. So you mentioned, you had a supportive adult who was with you during that time. Was there a particular adult who was supportive of you playing with toys as a kid? Was there anybody who was unsupportive?
No, I don't. Well, so I'm sure just like many people, I was, born to a single mother. She was not married. She had me when she was 24. I just turned 44, so she just turned 64 this year. But she had me when she was 24. She was living with my grandparents, her parents, and her little sister. Eventually she got married to my then stepfather. As a kid, no, I didn't really never had anybody really trying to like nudge me away from toys. I mean, in the 80s, that was an acceptable thing for kids. We didn't have internet. We didn't have, we had cable, but we didn't have before the NES came out, we really didn't have a whole lot of great video games to play. So you weren't wasting time. You were outside playing with your friends or playing, action figures on somebody's porch or in the backyard or, playing with mask toys in a sandbox. It's as I got older, though, it became more of my stepfather trying to push me to trying to get me to fix cars and do all this stuff. And he didn't understand why, I wanted to read comic books and play with, collect toys. And I wasn't a great looking kid growing up. So I never really had a girlfriend until, late into my teen years. And, for the longest time, he was like, "Oh, I always thought you were gay." I'm like, "Oh, thanks a lot. Appreciate that. That's it's always great to hear from somebody that's raised you most of your life. Cool. Thank you. I don't know where you got that. I've never given off that vibe, but awesome. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it was just the way he presented it to me that I was like, oh, okay then. Well, screw you too, I guess."
Well, and I think we'll speak to that a little bit later in a later question. Sure. In regards to what toys sort of mean to our generation versus the previous generation. But that I think we've all dealt with that one adult who's like, "Why are you so interested in these childlike things? Be more like me. Be more of an asshole like me, please." Yeah, pretty much.
That's what my stepfather was like. He loved my mother. They got along for 17 years, and he raised daughters. Like before he married my mother, he had another marriage. He had 3 daughters. Didn't know how to deal with a son, especially didn't know how to deal with a son who didn't want to do anything with cars or construction or, this is the stuff that he did in his, spare time. And I'm like, I don't want to do any of that. I want to watch movies and hang out and play with my toys and read these comic books.
And it's always such a challenge because sometimes adults really see the behavior of their children as a reflection on them. So in a weird sort of way, even though he was really bad at it, that's him trying to say, "Hey, I'm trying to connect with you," but he obviously didn't figure it out.
Well, but he never. That's the thing, though, is I got older, and the more I talked to my mother, he never really tried to connect with me. That's the difference. Oh, okay. It's like my stepfather never went out of his way to try to have some kind of connection with me. He and I were always, especially as I got older, into my teenage years and stuff, I was never a bad kid. Like my mother would even tell you, I never really gave them any problems, but my stepfather and I would butt heads because, I would forget to take the trash out and I'd had to go to work and I'd come home from work without taking the trash out. And instead of him just being pissed off and take the trash out, he literally would walk downstairs, take the trash bag, cut it open and dump it on my bed.
Okay, so that is what we call a unhealthy adult behavior.
Yes, very much so. He cut the power cord on my television one time on a TV I bought with my own money. He just went downstairs and cut the power cord. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I don't want to say that I had a super insane childhood and teenage years. I really didn't, but it was moments like that. Like my mom would defend me because she's like, "You didn't do anything. Why are you being such a dick?" But it was a really weird person for me to grow up around.
And I'm really sorry to hear that. I mean, that's really unfortunate.
I mean, and I appreciate it, but no, I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me. Like that's not the point of telling these tales. It's just like this is to give you a better idea of who I am and why I ended up being the way I am to a degree. Because it was like a lot of it was like, well, I don't really want to connect with you either, old man. So cool, And
I do think that sometimes, I know for me, to a degree, part of my collecting and even this continued fascination with toys and comic books and all that stuff is almost would you say it's a little bit in defiance of?
No, it's not. Okay. It's not so much in defiance. I don't know where your questions are going to lead, so I don't know how much.
All sorts of places. I'm going off right now.
I don't think it that's not what defined my collecting. It was a number of things, because there was a number of years into, as I got to be, I don't know, 13, 14 years old, and into high school, I got more into reading. I got into reading horror novels and started going to the movies a lot. And I still had toys, but by that point, by the time I had turned 13, I had lost everything that I owned toy-wise in a flood downstairs in the basement we lived in. The sub pump backed up, and it was water from floor to ceiling downstairs, and everything I had down there, Sectars, Masters of the Universe, G.I. Joe, my Transformers, GoBots, all of it, it was ruined. Sectars high playset, just destroyed. I had a lot of stuff, and it was all gone. I still had some stuff upstairs, but it was mostly like Ninja Turtles, stuff like that was newer. But I'd kind of stopped dealing with toys at that point, got more into horror novels and movies and reading. Comic books became really big right around that time because Death of Superman happened around that time, 93, 94. And I started buying comic books because the comic book store I was going to, subscribers got all their comics half off. So it was like you were buying, for $30 a week, you were buying this ridiculous stack of comics. So I was buying pretty much everything on the shelf at that point.
So quite a small shift, because you did mention you lost a lot of toys in a flood.
Yeah.
And you listed off a pretty good who's who of toys at the time. But in terms of the types of toys to play with, what were some of your favorites to play with?
I loved G.I. Joe when I was younger. So my mom worked at the mall here in Springfield, White Oaks Mall, which is still around, surprisingly. It's still in business, which is crazy to me. But she worked next door to, at the time, was Circus World. Because there was a Circus World, and then right above it on the next level was the KV Toys. So she worked right next door to the Circus World, and she would, every year for my birthday, for Christmas, she literally would go into those stores and buy whole lines of stuff because it would be clearanced out by that point. Back then they would clearance stuff out real quick. So I got a wide array of a lot of fun stuff. Chuck Norris Karate Commandos were always a lot of fun to me. Sectars I loved Sectars. It's a line that I regret not collecting, not getting into the full line to collect them, 7-8 years ago, because now they're too pricey to even think about at this point. I had a lot of fun stuff that was really cool. But yeah, Sectars, Joe's played a big part of that in my childhood, because I had a neighbor friend who was 4 years younger than me. I was 8, he was 4, and we played the snot out of G.I. Joes because he got every G.I. Joe that came out like every year. His parents were rich for the neighborhood, and they bought him so much stuff.
There's always that one kid in the neighborhood who had the best of the best.
Yes, yeah. Very much so.
So again, we kind of went through a nice list. You mentioned a lot of stuff. Was there any particular toy that stood out more than any others? Were there any that you felt are the most memorable? I think we all have those on our shelf currently, but for you, what was it?
Castle Grayskull was memorable to me. I got it for Christmas the year it came out. So that holds a strong place in my heart, as a very strong memory. The Sectars line, the whole line, it was unique. I don't know if Boglins had come out by the time Sectars had come out, or Boglins followed, but I remember Sectars being super unique because they were hand puppets, basically. All the insects were hand puppets, and that was amazing to me. I thought that was the coolest thing as a kid. Anything to do, much like our buddy Pixel Dan, anything to do with slime when I was a kid was huge. I loved slime toys. Not so much now, because I'm like, that stuff's messy. I don't want to mess with it anymore. But that kind of stuff is what I have the most memory of. I mentioned Chuck Norris Karate Commandos. Like I said, my mom got whole lines of stuff on clearance, and Chuck Norris was one of those lines. And I had the car, I had every figure, all in. Boom, one Christmas, here's everything, and you're like, well, this is the greatest thing ever. So yeah, that line holds a really special place. But those are the memories I have the most about that stuff. Is having those, G.I. Joe, the not the Mauler, but the green tank, and I can never remember its name. The motorized one they released, the first tank? One. No, the very first G.I. Joe tank they released. It was motorized. It was a Joe vehicle. It was an actual tank. I cannot remember the name. It's not the Mauler.
Mobat?
Might be the Mobat.
The motorized battle
Yes,
tank.
yeah. I got that for Christmas one year, and I loved the heck out of that thing until it broke.
So, to kind of connect to that as well, we talked about a wide variety of different items just a moment ago, and I've been in your basement, and you have a ton of stuff.
Yes.
But if you had to provide a label, would you prefer the label of action figures, dolls, or toys, or other labels when you're referring to primarily the stuff on your shelves at the far end of your basement, I guess we could say?
I just refer to myself as a toy collector.
Okay.
People always ask me what kind of toys, and I tell them it's everything. It's boys stuff, it's girls stuff, it's stuffed animals, it's Disney, it's PVC, it's Smurf-like stuff. Like it's just this massive array of ADHD interests that you could ever have. Like it's like, ooh, new shiny thing. Let's get all of that.
So you kind of just answered this other sort of pocket question that we had.
Sure.
Of how would you describe your collecting style? And I think
the ADHD thing is an interesting way to describe it because, like I said, I didn't start out collecting toys as I got older. It was comic books, and I had, when I sold my comic collection, I had somewhere between, I couldn't tell you, 17 and 23,000 books. Something like that by the time I sold them. It was a lot of books, and it wasn't just new stuff or 90s stuff. It was, I had bought a lot of back issues and had runs of stuff, and it was pretty impressive for, when I sold it, I was 28, 29. But I started as a comic collector, and it kind of transmorphed into toy collecting and movie posters. I probably have 300 or 400 movie posters that no one ever sees because they're rolled up and put away because there's nowhere to put them.
I do want to point out, Blanchard, I do have a Waterworld movie banner poster that is just waiting to be put up. Devall has seen it.
Yes, I have.
But
it's ridiculous.
I think one of the reasons why I sort of, I guess for lack of a better term, got drawn to Toy World Order and you and Dave, when I started seeing your collection and your style, you were bringing up toys that I knew, but maybe nobody else did. You liked the obscure stuff. You liked the stuff that maybe not everybody appreciated, like the Island of Misfit, obscure, clearance out toys. and
a lot of that goes back to Danny and I's run on that Toy Smell, because Danny was doing videos before we did that new Toy Smell, and he was doing videos for He-Man.org. Like he had done the mini versions of He-Man and Skeletor at that point. You're talking, this was 2000,
7, 8, 9,
2000, late 2006, 2007.
Oh wow!
And I remember watching those and going, these are amazing, because he would show them to me, and I was like, I want to do this. This is cool. And that's what got us started. We started making lists of all these toy lines that we knew we loved, and that's where the Food Fighters and all that stuff comes from for us. But yeah, it became, when we started, that was the thing we wanted to point out. These, not the more, like, we never, if you notice that new Toy Smell, I don't think we ever did a G.I. Joe episode, or any like major toy line except for some Masters stuff. Like there was never, I don't think there was a Transformers episode.
That's because Danny hates Transformers.
Well, he says that, but don't let him fool you. He's got a
Trypticon that he loves.
Yes, he does. But we wanted to stray away from the more widely known stuff and focus on the oddball stuff. And we kind of continued that with that new Toy Smell too. But as that new Toy Smell evolved from what it started out as into what it had become, with Dave and I just basically doing videos on whatever the hell we wanted to do, toy-wise, it became something much different. And Dave and I's, and even Danny and I's performance styles, like, we're not, Danny these days is himself in those videos. Like, if you've ever, both of you have met Danny, that what you see in the videos with Dan is what you get 100% in real life, and it's not fake. That's who Dan is, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. He is that person. He is that excited to talk about toys. He loves it to this day. But when we did that new Toy Smell, and even when Dave and I do Toy World Order videos, like we're not playing ourselves, we're playing versions of ourselves. Since Danny still wrestles, I wrestled for almost 10 years, and we just use that wrestling that the basic idea of a wrestling persona where it's yourself cranked up to 11, and just we played these great versions of ourselves that we just thought were entertaining to us, and we figured, well, somebody else will find it entertaining. That's kind of what Dave and I do these days. Somebody left a message on one of our YouTube videos talking about, you guys were great. You guys have always been great. So sometimes I wish Dave wasn't so angry. And I'm like, you realize that we've never made it a secret. Like, we're not playing ourselves. We're literally playing characters. Yeah. Like, that's who Dave and I are. Like, Dave is not really like that in real life. Yes, Dave is a grump, but he is not that grumpy all the time.
Dave's not as grumpy as I am.
He's a big. Dave's got a heart of gold, and if he likes you and he loves you, he would do anything for you. And just on camera, it's more fun for him to play the disgruntled old man to my idiot, because it works so well. So
it works so well. That's the whole point.
And that chemistry has been absolutely infectious, I have to say.
And that's not even something that's fake. Like, Dave and I just love the hell out of each other, and it's so much fun to.
So Back to the Future, huh, Doc Brown? Yes. Go back in time.
To sit down and every week we sit down and talk, and we talk before we start recording, but on mic when we sit down and talk, it's more fun to bust each other's chops and to discuss these weird things and get off on tangents, because it's enjoyable for us.
Absolutely.
Speaking of tangents, we're going to get right back into the scheme of things. We're going to have Mr. Blanchard here. He's going to jump back into our script, but I love these side questions we've had so far.
Absolutely. Well, we need the history of Devall, and we're definitely going to get the puppets history a little bit later. So
this is like the oral history.
Well, I mean, we spent 2.5 hours with Dave in episode 106. So I mean,
we need 5.
No, I don't know if Devall can handle 5 hours of himself sometimes.
No, dear Lord, no.
Good guys or bad guys? Which toys were your favorites to play with the most?
I liked both of them. I know it's a cop-out question, but it's not like I preferred one over the other. Like, I always thought, like with Masters, I always thought the villains were way cooler than the heroes, but I loved the heroes because I loved characters like Ram Man and Moss Man, but I loved the hell out of Stinkor, and like Terraclaw Skeletor was always amazing to me as a kid. The battle armor figures were great. The Joes and Cobras, we always had line jumpers where they'd be like, I'm going to be Cobra today. So I never really had like a strong preference of, I like the good guys, don't buy me the bad guys. Because to me, that wasn't how you played back then. Like, you had to have bad guys to fight the good guys. So you had to get both of them. So you learned to appreciate both avenues there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you keep the bad guy, I remember bringing him up in a previous one for me. Did you keep the bad guys at an even playing field, or did you sometimes, like some kids, have more good guys than bad guys? The bad guys had to be overpowered?
I think it always depended. It depended on what we were playing. The Joes always outnumbered the Cobras, so the Joes were always going to win. Like when you played Voltron, I don't know, you couldn't do a whole lot, so you had to find other things to stand in for monsters for Voltron, because they didn't make big monsters for the Panache Place Voltron stuff. So you just had the little figures, and it's like, all right, well, we'll find here's a here's a big giant robotic robot that can be his villain now. So
Voltron can fight the Decepticons any day. Just saying.
Big. There wasn't back then, before Triptychon, there wasn't a Decepticon big enough to deal with Voltron, because the Panache Place Voltron and even the Matchbox Voltron is huge.
What about Devastator?
Devastator's too small. Even next to the Matchbox Voltron, he's still tiny.
Damn. All right. You mentioned earlier that Castle Grayskull was your favorite play set. So what is or was your favorite toy vehicle?
I think if I had to go to a favorite toy vehicle, it would probably be Chuck Norris Karate Commando's his Karate Corvette.
Yes.
I still love the hell out of that thing. I think it's a fascinating piece. I have seen the prototype for that up close, which is kind of cool to, because it's pretty much the same thing, but still, it's just like to have the prototype like right there in front of you was neat. But I love the hell out of that car. I think it's still just a ridiculously stupid vehicle, and I love the heck out of it. Blades come out the side and the front. Freaking Ninja Stars can be flipped off the back. It's so freaking cool.
I actually think. Did you get that at Kane County?
I don't remember. I know I've got the box for it, so I may have. I bought it boxed and opened it.
There was a Kane County that I feel like that I was at. I saw it, walked past it a few times, finally decided to make the jump on it, and it was gone. And then I feel like you posted that you got it in one of your haul videos or something.
It's possible. I'd have to go back, because if you think about how many haul videos I did for King County over the years, it's like, I don't know which one that would be in.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't need to track it down, but I'm just like, I want to blame Devall for something.
It's very possible. It was either King County or it was a Toy Man, but I'm pretty sure it was King County, and I'm pretty sure I didn't spend more than $20 on it.
Yep.
Wow.
That's why I finally made the decision.
So you figure it's like, that was probably 7 years ago, 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds right. Feels right.
Yeah. So the prices back then were super low. Now, if you tried to buy one of those Minton box, you're not going to buy it for $20. I tell you that much.
Nope, not at all. Did you and your friends ever pretend with your toys that you had? By this, I mean, did you say, I'm going to be this toy and I'm going to be that toy and whatever?
I don't recall 100%. I don't recall ever. I remember more my friend Daryl and I playing superheroes, and like, it's not a Toy Story so much, but making costumes for ourselves and then pretending like we're playing in the backyard and we jump on the clothesline and swing from it, and as we land, like we strip our clothes off and underneath our costumes and we go fight and stuff. That kind of stuff I remember. But when it comes to toys, it was never, my toy play pattern was never like, I'm going to be this person and you're going to be that person. Like, it never went that way. It was always just like, you want to play Joe's? Yeah, let's play Joe's.
Cool. What features define a good toy to you? How true does the item feel in comparison to the source material likenesses?
That's a rough question, because I think it's, while it's very well different for everyone, especially for me, it's like that I don't think you can really nail down what constitutes as a good toy. Like, there's so many bad toys out there that are actually really good toys. Look at something like Food Fighters. When Food Fighters came out, it was a terrible toy line, did not sell well. Everyone thought it was dumb, and now it's very beloved and very cool. And not because it's nostalgic, because people are like, this line is actually really neat. It was way ahead of its time. So I think it's less about, like today with like NECA making, or Super 7 doing these Ultimates figures. Yeah, they're cool, but they don't really constitute a really good toy just because they have all this articulation and stuff. It's more about in the eyes of the beholder. If you look at something and go, that's a really cool toy, I mean, eventually you'll find somebody that agrees with you 100% on that fact. As for, what was the second part of the question?
It's, how true does the item have to feel in comparison to the source material?
If we're talking about vintage toys, none of those toys in the old days were nowhere. They were nowhere close to being identical to the source material, except for one toy line, and that's Schaeper's Filmation Ghostbusters line. That's the only toy line I remember in the 80s, and maybe Galoob's Inspector Gadget doll that came out. But the Schaeper Filmation Ghostbusters line, even today, you look at it and go, that's one of the most accurately produced toy lines that looks and feels like the animated show. Those characters look exactly like they're supposed to. I know people would probably argue with the real Ghostbusters. Well, no, they don't, though. They don't look anything like their cartoon counterparts. Their, G.I. Joes, the Joes came first before the cartoon, so everything was modeled from the toy to the cartoon, so you can't really go that way. Mask was kind of the same way. Pretty much a lot of that stuff was...
the toys came first, and then the cartoons,
Yeah, so it was, but Schaeper's Filmation Ghostbusters, that cartoon came first, and they designed the toy line shortly after the cartoon debuted to have that stuff out. It was, they were already working on it, but they worked off, all the character models for the show, and everything in there is accurate. Like even that Ghost Command playset is completely accurate to what they portrayed in the show for a lot of it. I mean, the Skelevator, the Ghost Buggy transforms, which is, for a toy from 86, 85, 86. That's an amazing accomplishment. That toy is a stunning piece of art.
Yeah, it is. What does toy packaging have to draw you in? So whether you're a kid or an adult, you go into a toy store. Let's say you go into a now defunct toy store, and you look at whatever you're going to look at. What does the packaging have to have? What does it have to? What does it say to you? I want that.
It's weird. I know I loved I still love to this day the artwork on vintage toy boxes, the painted artwork, especially the master stuff, the hand painted, like Earl Norman stuff and all that. This stuff's amazing. But for me as a kid, it wasn't the packaging that grabbed me. It had to be, if it was a figure and it was, it was packaged so you could see the figure. I looked at the figure and then I would grab the box or the package and turn around to look at the back to see things in more detail. Like that's how I selected toys when I was younger. It wasn't, the packaging wasn't what grabbed me. It was the actual toy. Like on G.I. Joe vehicles, the front of the box was usually like a driver and artwork. And then you would flip the box around to see specs on the toy itself. And that's what I wanted to see. I was like, what does it actually look like? Because that's what I want to know.
All right. Well, we kind of already know this one, but do you open your toys or do you leave them packaged? If you keep toys packaged, do you have any specific criteria for that?
When Carrie and I moved into this house going on almost 12 years ago now, I had a bunch of stuff that was meant in package. I had I had a loose and a boxed collection of Brave Star complete. I had a bunch of stuff that was boxed that we kind of, we decorated, we kind of moved stuff around and made room. And I made back before the basement was full of stuff. It was just, the smattering of things that I liked and looked really cool. Eventually, I wanted to do boxed and loose for everything. And I realized real quick that dream was not going to become a reality because there's just not enough room. So I made the decision to start. I literally would find vintage packaged items and open them. So I knew I was getting 100% complete, best quality piece to display. So I open everything. Like if I'm sure it's going to piss a lot of people off to hear that, but I all the vintage toys that I own, not all of them, probably 60% of what I own downstairs is stuff that I bought on package, in box, open to display.
Which, let that piss people off, but the one thing I can certainly say is it's not uncommon for people who want good collections to do that. I did that with several toys.
And a lot of it was, it came down to like, for instance, I'll have to look this up while we're talking because I'm like, crap, what the hell's his name? In the Kinner Swamp Thing line, there was a great line, very short-lived, but I noticed as I was buying stuff, you could find most of the figures complete, and you could get them for a decent price, but I kept noticing there was one figure in particular that I never could find complete. I couldn't find the accessory for him. It was driving me bonkers. I could not, for the life of me, get him complete. And it's one of the villains. God, I still can't find his name.
I know who you're referring to. It has like a little green like bug pump thing.
Yes. And that was something.
Weed Killer.
Weed Killer. Thank you. I looked and looked and looked for Weed Killer complete, and I could not find him because the little accessory that he comes with is the most inane, stupid little just piece of crap. Like it doesn't look like anything. I mean, it looks like a bug pump sprayer, but if you just looked at it and you were like, well, that's garbage, you just throw it away. And I'm pretty sure that's what happened to 90% of these things. They just threw them away because they're like, So I had to buy one of those on card to open it to have complete. Same thing with Revell's Power Lords. I had to buy a number of those on card to open them because you couldn't find them complete. You could not find, you just couldn't find certain things for them, and it got really frustrating. Like, trying to find Psydot's accessories were annoying. Rhaegoth, trying to find his gun. When you see the gun up close and look at it, it literally just looks like a chrome piece of plastic. Like it does look like a gun, but if you'd had ever seen it, you'd have been like, I don't know what that goes to, and you'd have tossed it. So that was one of those things where it's like I need to buy that on card because that's the only way I'm going to get it complete.
But you can also guarantee by buying things on card that you're going to have it in the best condition. It's going to be complete.
You can, but not always. When it comes to something like Kenner's RoboCop line. That stuff all used vac metal, and as it ages, the vac metal just flakes off. Yep. And I had to buy 3 of the Robocycles in a box to get one good one that still had all of the vac metal on it, because when I would open the other 2 and pull them out, it was the motorcycle, and at the bottom of the bag was just this pile of dust.
And I remember you buying one at Kane County, open it up later on to find out it was dust, and that was one that I also almost bought.
Yes.
But it was gone when I came back.
Yep. So
I found out who got it.
There's this weird dynamic of you almost take a risk at times, especially buying blind box things like that, where you can't see the item inside. Because you run the risk of it being, is it in good shape inside there, or has time not been kind? The Crystar Ice Castle is a perfect example of that, where people were buying those mint in box like 7-8 years ago and having to buy the mint in box only to find out when they open it that it was just shattered. Like it's in a million pieces inside that box because that plastic is so fragile that you really don't ever know what you're going to get when you do that. So it becomes a risk too of, do I do this, or do I just try to find a loose one that is in good shape,
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Josh, take it away.
Ooh. Technical difficulties. Let's move on, shall we?
Question 12, sir.
Mr. Devall.
Yes?
If as a kid, you were only allowed to choose one toy franchise to collect from, one, and you could get the entire line, which one would you choose and why?
Masters of the Universe. Just because that is the toy line that I grew up with most. That is the one that I remember fondly. I have a deep love for. I don't have a passionate love for it as somebody like Erdley does, or a number of people. But that's the one that I have. That gives me the best feelings as an adult was Masters of the Universe. I loved that line. I still love that line. I still think it's one of the shining examples of how to produce a toy line for kids.
So now as an adult collector, especially looking back, based on what you just said, especially in how retail stores now we're seeing a greater influx of lines that are blurring that line between vintage and modern. Looking back at about the 30 or 40 years, do you prefer vintage toys or modern toys? We don't have to get into the dictionary definition of vintage, but do you prefer vintage or modern toys?
I guess it depends on what it is. Like I stopped buying modern toys. Although I say stopped, I didn't really stop. I still buy modern Transformers, usually G1 inspired Transformers or stuff that has to do with the animated movie. Stuff like the Masters Universe WWE stuff I bought. But it was if I had to choose, it was always more vintage for me because it was more about the hunt and walking down an aisle at a toy show and finding something that you're like, well, that's really cool. I got to own that. So it would definitely be vintage. But there are still some modern toys that I still will go out of my way to try to find just because of what they are and what they represent.
Which is interesting because a lot of those modern toys, like you said, are a direct remake or homage to a vintage toy, so it's sort of like you're getting the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Okay, another random side question I do want to ask. Have you ever been to a toy show where you found something on a table that was vintage, but you didn't know what it was, and you decided to buy it just because it was awesome?
Honestly, no. And it's because I spent a lot of my teenage years before really the advent of the internet. The internet was there, but it wasn't what it is today. I would buy every toy book that came out. So Tomart's action figure encyclopedias. I bought a lot of the girl collector books that would come out at the time, like Barbies and stuff like that. G.I. Joe, the stuff on the 60s Joe line and that. I did a lot of research, reading just everything I could get my hands on. So there hasn't really been, other than the oddball, strange, like knockoff line, there really is not a lot out there that I can't look at and go, oh, it's from that line. Just because of and not just that, but because now that, the internet's a thing and we've done so much research over the years on all of these weird oddball lines that lead you down these rabbit holes to these websites that you find all this other stuff about, and meeting people. Like I really have this knowledge of toy lines and things related to them to pretty much be able to tell you, oh yeah, that's from this, or that they did that because of this,
And that's not you bragging in the least bit.
No,
and I'm saying that very seriously. Like, that's not. I know you, and I know that you are not bragging. You do have that knowledge.
Yeah.
A great example is you have a fantastic episode of your podcast where you have like 30 or 40 obscure toys that you go through, and I think you knew most of them.
That was our 300th episode.
200, I think.
200, yeah, 200, because you interviewed us for the 300th.
Yeah.
It was the 200th. It was me, Dave, Pixel Dan, and our buddy Dave Gall, and I just compiled this list of stuff that they hadn't even heard of, that I was like, I want to talk about this stuff.
And it's really, I would argue, one of the best episodes you guys ever did, because there's just so much content. And
I know. I had to add every one of those links to the story, and I'm like, this sucks. Why did I do this?
Still a great source if anybody really wants to hear about a lot of wonderful toys.
I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun to do.
I mean, you've done a lot of great episodes. I think that's one of the best, because it's about 3 hours also, so it's good for me when I'm driving. But yeah. So this is a big question, kind of not even yet in the middle of our questioning. So if we want to break this up into pieces, we can do part one of this answer. But do you feel you're coming to an end of your active collecting? And if so, what signified that phase for you?
No,
and we can break this up into parts if you want.
Right. No, I think. So I don't know if I'm sure we'll talk about it more in depth later, but I had made the decision to sell my collection, and not just like a portion of it, like all of it, save for a handful of stuff that I was keeping that meant something to me personally. The thing is that even though I am selling this massive amount of stuff, it's not going to stop me from buying. There's still stuff that I'm looking for, of certain things. Carrie and I, my wife, we still go to antique stores and flea markets, and we still love to shop. Like a couple weeks after I had made this decision to sell this collection, for our birthday weekend, we went to some antique malls in El Paso, Illinois. Just because we hadn't been in a while. And, I ended up buying some stuff just because I was like, mostly I dig through dollar comic book boxes these days to add to my licensed comic collection, because that's pretty much where my comics have gone, is licensed books. So 80s properties books, Mask, G.I. Joe, Transformers, that kind of stuff. But I don't think there's a part of me that will ever stop collecting, because it becomes... It's not even so much about collecting toys for me. It's, like we said, the collection is so big, at one time up until about 2 years ago, I don't know, Josh, I don't know if you ever saw it, but I had a ridiculous DVD collection that was probably, 800, 900 discs, which there's people that have way more than I had. But at the time, I'd been buying DVDs since 95, since they started.
I remember that.
Yeah. I had this huge collection. That I eventually just copied all the discs onto a Plex server that I run, and sold everything. I just took them to a store and made a stupid amount of money for DVDs that I was like, all right, well, that bought me a PS4 and a whole bunch of games.
I do remember seeing in the room where you have your arcade cabinet.
Yes,
I think there was a decent sized shelf, and I remember you telling me that that was after you had downsized.
Yeah. Because now it's filled with VHS tapes.
Weirdly, I'm also starting to gather a bunch of VHS tapes too. So I don't know. I think we're both working backwards in some ways.
Well, it's weird because, like I said, it's the collecting part of me is not going to stop. It'll stop. Having the collection downsized to the point where it's going to be will make me pause on a lot of things. If I see something and I go, do I really, really need this? Is this something I want to add? Is this something I think that I feel that I need? 9 times out of 10, I will probably put it back because I'm like, I don't really need this. It's cool to see. I don't really need to take this.
But you'll still text your friends when you find the cool things, right, though? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I know Dave has already been concerned that I'm like going to stop going to toy shows and stuff. And there's a toy man this Sunday, and he's like, "You're probably not going to go." And I was like, "No, I'll go with you." I was like, "We'll be back before like 10 a.m. I'll go." I'll we go down there, walk around, and be like, "All right, time to go."
Well, you just promise that you'll help carry anything he needs.
Oh yes, always.
So we are downsizing. We're kind of dropping stuff down. This is always a fun question. What is one toy you can always play with?
Honestly, if one toy that I could always just play with is probably Tyco. Back when Talkin Toys were big, when Teddy Ruxpin was big, Tyco did a series of 3 figures for Sesame Street that was Big Bird, Oscar the Grouch, and Cookie Monster. And the difference is much like Teddy and Grubby, the 3 of them can all connect to one another. So they can all tell a story together, and they all interact with one another. And to me, even to this day, I could put batteries in all 3 of them, pop a tape in, and watch those 3 perform. No questions asked, because to me, it's still one of the most amazingly low-tech, awesome things that I've ever seen in my life.
And in a weird sort of way, isn't that kind of like being at Chuck E. Cheese back in the day? You have those animatronics. They're at home. You can have your own pizza. Yes
and no. You find after a while, like with Teddy Ruxpin stories, you're like, oh my God, they're all the same story. Jesus, make it stop. But yeah, I mean, they're fun to have, and I've worked on all of them. That's something that's staying in the collection is all of the Talking Toys, because I've physically repaired every one of them myself. Like, they all work because I took them apart, cleaned everything, repaired stuff, and put it all back together.
By the way, I might have another patient for you.
Oh, good.
But all right. So
wait. When did he get his toy medical license? Dr. Devall.
That's right. I put myself through school.
He made his own medical certification board and certified himself.
Yes.
Even though there are always toy lines that people never purchase just because they're not your interest, is there anything that you specifically said, no, I am avoiding this, whether it be a toy line or type of character? Is there anything that you're just, I'm refusing to buy this, go away, throw it away, like Pops or something like that?
Hey, watch it.
G.I. Joe, Star Wars, Barbie, and Cabbage Patch Kids. Barbie, because I just had no interest in it as a collector. I was just like, there's way too much shit. Cabbage Patch Kids, I never liked them, even when they came out in the 80s. I was always like, yeah. And G.I. Joe and Star Wars, just because as I got older, there's just so much. Star Wars has never really gone down in price. It's always just kept skyrocketing, and I don't want to spend that kind of money for 3 3/4 inch figures that I really didn't enjoy when I was a kid, because I really didn't have a lot of Star Wars stuff, even though I was alive during 2 of those sequels originally. Like, I didn't have a lot of it. And G.I. Joe, just as you get to become an older collector, you go, there's just too much, and it's too expensive, and I don't want to deal with it. And it takes up too much room. It's just like, no, I'm good.
Is there anything, because with Danny, with all of his He-Man primarily, I know he's also got a lot of Turtles.
Yes.
And with Dave, with G.I. Joe and Star Wars, was there any lines that because they focus in them that you're actually like, you know what? I don't need it. I can go visit them and see it anytime I want.
Not particularly. Dave and I have always commented to each other that it's easiest going to a toy show with the 2 of us together, because neither one of us is really going after the same stuff. We can both appreciate each other's stuff, but we're not like fighting for the same stuff. Danny and I, sometimes it just depended. Like, I would buy Turtles every once in a while, but not heavily. I'd buy Master stuff when I found it, or weapons that I needed for certain figures, but it's not really ever been any type of thing like that where I'm like, well, I don't need to buy any of that because I can go over there and see it, because I even though we have the same interest, like there's certain things I'm like, well, I want to own that. I don't care if they have it. I want it too.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Yeah. Hey gamers, TV's Mr. Neil here. The Gaming Hipster is my personal podcast in which I take you on a journey through my history of gaming, both new and old. Each month is a new topic show in which I bring you my console memories, give reviews of my favorite video games, and talk with cool guests.
People have made cartridges that will let you play Netflix on Nintendo. I was making sure that I got everything. I was writing it all down.
They fixed that for the third fake prototype.
And that's the first time I remember seeing real animated boobs.
Find the podcast at geekcastradio.com or on Spotify. You can also hear a deluxe version of The Gaming Hipster at ravinghipster.com or patreon.com/Mr. Neil. For $2 a month, you can hear longer versions of the podcast with after-show segments and stuff too raw for the internet. You also get various topic shows, my commentary podcast, The Big Bad Movie Show, commercial-free Geekcast stuff, and more. All at patreon.com/Mr. Neil and ravinghipster.com.
What was that universal greeting again? Never mind, I remember. Ba weep grana, weep nitty bong.
Hey guys, it's Rodimus Primal, and be sure to check out my YouTube channel. Join me as I have Transformers discussions, retrospectives, toy reviews, and more. You can also follow me on Twitter at Rodimus Primal, as well as Facebook and Instagram at Rodimus Primal Show. Transform and roll out, and be sure to check out my content till all are one.
Last big party of the summer, folks. Let's go out with a bang.
Hurry, Skeletor, hurry! I am hurrying, I'm hurrying!
The Powers of Grayskull series has covered every episode of all of the Masters of the Universe cartoons except for 2. Join Optimus Solo and TFG and Mike as they tell tales of Eternia, discover the myths of Etheria, become masters in space, evolve into the Masters of Grayskull, and finally reveal the revelation of Masters of the Universe. We'll also be finding out the origins of how guests got into or out of watching the Masters of the Universe cartoons, and so much more. You can find the podcast at geekcastradio.com and any podcatching client you choose to use. By the power and for the honor of Grayskull, we all have the power.
He-Man! Always He-Man!
ToyCast is back. We are talking toys once more here on the Geekcast Radio Network's Toy and Action Figure podcast. From breaking into the display case to our toy topic talk and the brand new Origins in Toy collections, where we get guests to tell us their toy story of how they got into toy collecting. ToyCast is the only toy podcast you will ever need. Find us on geekcastradio.com and any podcatching client you choose to use. Now go forth, transform and transcend your toy collecting today while listening to ToyCast.
Discover a world of vintage and modern toys that's more than meets the eye with the Triple Takeover ToyCast.
Hosted by toy writers and photographers Toybox Soapbox, 6O, and TF Square 1, this informal and chilled out series of discussions cover everything from vintage Transformers to Mask, Diaclone, Microman, and more, be it nostalgic or current.
Whether you're a seasoned collector or a casual robot enthusiast, all are welcome.
Triple Takeover ToyCast.
We brought the entire convention center to the brink of an inter-genre geek war.
Okay, Michael, if we're going to tackle this podcast thing, we've got to do something really special. It has to be cool, daily, in audio form, and undetectable by radar. Something that screams summer. I know, let's do a Phineas and Ferb review podcast. We'll call it the Podcast Organization Without a Cool Acronym, or POWCA for short. What do you think?
I think if we're not careful, Candace is going to bust us.
You can find POWCA on the Geekcast Radio Network, iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, and all of the other methods you find podcasts.
We'll give you the whole seat, but you'll only need the edge.
What's wrong? Feeling pixelated? Well, excuse me, princess. Hi, this is TV's Mr. Neil. Join Blanchard and me as we sit down to watch some classic video game-based cartoons. Super Mario Brothers, Sonic, Zelda, Captain N, and more. A total of 9 cartoons spanning 100 episodes. You can check out Pixels in the Animation on the GeekCast Radio Network at geekcastradio.com.
Oh, hey, I got something!
Since 2009, we have been the premier cartoon podcast here at the GeekCast Radio Network. We are ToonCast. From taking you beyond the cartoons we grew up with to seasonal saucy toon talk, and now we get the origins of toonsters everywhere as we ask guests 30 questions about their cartoon watching experiences, plus so much more. ToonCast is back. Join me, TFG and Mike, and the rest of the GCRN crew as we give you all the toon talk you will ever need, only on the GCRN and wherever you consume your podcasts. We are beyond good, beyond evil, beyond your wildest imagination. We are all tunes all the time here on ToonCast.
Yeah. Welcome to my throne room, Future Tales. The Beast Unleashed podcast is over, not gone. You can hear more of this great podcast, discussing all the episodes of Beast Wars and Beast Machines on geekcastradio.com. We include voice actor and writer interviews with stellar hosting by Steve, Mike, and Michael. Head on over to iTunes or the net, or else I will send you my vehicles to extract your spark and destroy you. Yes.
Hi, my name is Dr. Andrea Letamendi, clinical psychologist.
And I'm Brian Ward, nerd. And we want to invite you to listen to our new podcast, The Arkham Sessions.
It's a podcast dedicated to the fun
and geeky
analysis of Batman the Animated Series, episode by episode.
We pay tribute to the writers and the stories of the animated series,
while also exploring the very real psychology behind Gotham's rogues.
And maybe even its heroes. All of this and more
each week
on The Arkham Sessions
at UnderTheMaskOnline.com.
Decian, the superhero webcomic. Decian's got superhero antics and sexy girls. For action, comedy, mayhem, and more, read it now at Decian.com. DASIEN.com.
Hi, I'm Terry Smith, the host of Music Talks, the podcast where I ask guests a simple but beguiling question. Choose a song from each decade of your life and tell me why these songs mean so much to you. Guests and listeners love this format, and if you want to find out why, then take a listen at musictalkspod.buzzsprout.com or use your favourite podcast app. Just search on Music Talks Terry Smith. If you'd like to be a guest on the show and talk to me, then send me a tweet at Music Talks Pod. I look forward to doing some music talking soon.
Ah, brave new world that has such putzes in it. You know, kids, a lot has changed while your old Uncle Joker's been away. New Gotham, new rules, even a new Batman.
It isn't 65 years in the future, but Legends of the Dark Knight has gone beyond. Batman Beyond, that is.
The new boy. Ears are too long and I miss the cape, but not too shabby. Not too shabby at all.
Join Steve and Mike as they delve into the remaining episodes of the podcast, where they'll cover Batman Beyond, products, games, and more. Check it out only on geekcastradio.com.
Well, I am shocked and dismayed. Well, now you can't be both. You be shocked, I'll be dismayed.
Coming in 2016, Steve Megatron and myself, TF2 and Mike, bring you a brand new TV review show. Welcome to Podcaster Meets World. That's right, we're launching a Boy and Girl Meets World review podcast here on the GCRN. It'll take us 70 episodes of the podcast to review all 158 episodes of Boy Meets World. After that, we will tackle Girl Meets World. You can find Podcaster Meets World on GeekCastRadio.com and iTunes starting late summer, early fall 2016. So come on and walk through the world with us.
I love the thing they call.
By the power of Grayskull, I command the jaw bridge. Open!
We now return to the Transformers.
All right, folks, we are back here on ToyCast, and of course, because Josh is out of his mind tonight, he did forget one question. Are there any toys in the past or currently that you wish you hadn't bought them, or are there any toys that you may have sold that you regret letting them go?
You know, it's weird. I don't regret selling anything. The one toys that I regret buying that I don't have anymore, I got rid of immediately after we did the episode. I think even on the episode, I'm like, I gave them to Danny and I was like, these are yours. I don't ever want to see these toys again. We did it. I bought the whole run of Tales from the Crypt Keeper toys for that new Toy Small episode. And we did that episode and they were the most disappointing toys I have ever seen in my life. And when we were done with that review, I literally on camera slid them to Danny. I'm like, they're yours now because I don't ever want to see these again.
That's funny.
It was just a terrible toy line. Now they're worth all the money, but it was a terrible toy line.
Yeah. I mean, toy lines can be terrible and worth a lot because they're terrible.
Yes, exactly.
How large or small is your toy collection? Do your toys take up the whole house, or are they relegated to one room, shelf, or something like that?
So our house is over 1,500 square feet. It's a big house.
Mm-hmm.
Josh has been here. It's pretty decent size, you know. I think there's 2 bedroom, 2 bath, and they're in a full finished basement. Well, the collection takes up the entire basement. Like it takes up all of the basement. Like there's not a whole lot of room to walk down. So it's rather immense, which is part of the reason why I'm like he needs to all go, because it's so overwhelming now. For a while, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of great memories. But now it's just like you walk down, and you go, "Oh my God, there's too much crap down here."
Yeah, and you were, for the last decade or so, at least since I've known you, for the last decade or so, you were producing content based on the toys you had in your basement, or based on the toys that Danny has in his basement, or Dave has in his basement, and you're not really like, I remember you used to do weekly videos sometimes. So
we did.
You're not really doing that anymore.
No,
so,
and we Flea Market Finds, which became Collection Expansion Extravaganza, which was my wife and I show together. We stopped doing that show because we literally ran out of room, and I'm like, I don't know where we're gonna put all this stuff. Like it became cumbersome. Like we were like, I mean, I still probably had 3 or 4 episodes that I never finished editing because the collection got out of hand, and I was like, so, people always ask me about that show, and I'm like, we literally stopped doing it because I don't have any room. Like, there's nowhere to put anything. So we don't buy the amount of stuff that we once bought at auctions and stuff. We would go to an auction and spend a couple $100 and come home with a ridiculous amount of stuff, and then do videos on it for like 2 months. But we just couldn't do it anymore. So it became one of those things where it's like, that show went by the wayside. Dave and I's reviews kind of stopped too, because it was just like there's too much stuff coming out. Dave kind of stopped buying a lot of stuff. I wasn't buying anything new really, so it was just like, all right, well.
Yep. How do you keep track of your collection if you do?
I don't. For a while there, I was starting to, for insurance reasons, we started to go through and inventory everything, take pictures of everything. That stopped because we realized there's no way to do this. Like, we just can't. I was adding stuff to it too fast, and there was too much of it. So we kind of stopped it. I don't have an inventory of it now. I have an idea of what's down there. I could tell you if I have something or not, but I don't have like a running spreadsheet. The only thing I have running spreadsheets on, I have for a licensed book, for like my kids' books that we collect, I literally have every book that I have listed in kind of a Word document, so I can pull it up when we're somewhere and flip through the list and find it. Same with my comics. Like I have comics broken down by publisher and then by publisher alphabetically and then comic alphabetically. So if I can spin through real quick and go, do I have this issue? Yes, I do. I can go back.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you display your toys? Do you display it with the possibility of others to view it in mind, or is it for your own personal viewing?
I think it started out with the idea of other people viewing it. It quickly became, I've got to put this somewhere, so you get shoved back here.
All right, Josh, you get shoved back into the forefront. Take it away.
I'm ready to go. So, Devall, you have, and soon that will be in the past tense, you had a massive, impressive collection.
Yes.
Something that's inspired, something that's been documented, something that you've taken hour-long walkthroughs through.
Yes.
If you could keep only one toy, and I think this applies to a little bit of what we're talking about, if you could only keep one toy from the entire collection, and we're going to limit to one physical object because there's a lot of different types of things you have, what would it be and why? You can just grab one.
I can just grab one. It would be the 1962 Ideal Ralph, which is one of the first Muppet items produced. Ideal did a series of puppets of Kermit and Ralph, and they were the earliest form of Muppets products produced, licensed products. So that is one of the rarest pieces I have in the collection, and that would be the piece that I would keep.
And I've seen that. I've actually seen that, and that's such an amazing piece because I'm a Muppets fan too. I love Muppets beyond. I think we have similarly sized Muppets. You have a few pieces I don't have, but I'm actually going to give you the opportunity to now broaden that. Now that we know the one, we're going to give you the toy box challenge. You're going to get one. We're going to say 18 by 18 by 18 size box. So something you would get like HelloFresh or Blue Apron in.
Okay.
So you get that one box. The only toys you can keep have to fit in that box. So what do you pack into it?
Idea Ralph, Chuck Norris Karate Commandos, the characters from Pee-wee's Playhouse, the figures, some stuffed animals, probably some shirt tails, and Optimus Prime and Megatron.
That's not a bad selection, actually. One of these days, I do want to hear a little bit about your history behind Shirt Tails and the Get Along Gang a little bit.
I mean, I can tell you that right now pretty quick. The fascination behind that is that they really, for the cartoons, like Get Along Gang, when you start delving into the merchandise made for that show, for what was a very short-lived show, I think it only ran 13 episodes. There is so much merchandise for Get Along Gang, it's not even funny. Like, they literally made a lot of it in that short time. And it's beautiful. It's all beautiful. The stuffed animals are beautiful. They all have roller skates, which is awesome. They made little boxed clothed figures, which are great. They made some play sets, which are awesome, which I have both the play sets. It's a fun line. And the Shirt Tails, it fascinates me. Anything that started American Greetings and became this licensed phenomenon, Shirt Tails is along that lines. Rainbow Bride is along that lines. A lot of that stuff started with American Greetings, and it became something bigger. So Shirt Tails has always been fascinating to me. And then while there's a lot of American Greetings Shirt Tails stuff, there's very little licensed Hanna-Barbera Shirt Tails stuff. So that's kind of what does it for me with Shirt Tails, is the licensed stuff.
Very cool, very cool. All right, so it's the end-all, be-all question. Are you a Funko fan?
I appreciate what Funko has done for the business. They bring a lot of... they have so many licenses for their Funko Pops that they get even the most, just non-interested person interested in collecting something. And I think it's fascinating. I think it's something the collecting community at large needs more of, instead of the more niche thing. Pops has been really good. I am not a fan of the Funko Pops, even though I own a handful of them. I have never been the biggest fan of that line, but I appreciate what it's done. I appreciate how they've presented it and how it's lived this long.
Normally, I am not I get the regular size ones, just the normal ones, and they have these 6-inch or they have what is it? It's Obelisk and Slifer and what's the other one? Oh God, they have the 3 big gods from Yu-Gi-Oh as 6-inch ones, and I haven't gotten those yet.
Yeah.
And I usually shy away from those or the larger ones, like the 10-inch jumbo ones. But when they were like, yeah, we're doing a 10-inch Soundwave with cassettes for $40, GameStop exclusive, I'm like, shut up and take my money. Now, originally I thought that there was just going to be this, where the bottom of his tape deck is on his robot mode.
Right.
I thought there were just going to be 2 little things where you set the cassettes on. Oh no, it opens.
Yes.
Literally, I'm like, holy crap! This is the best Funko Pop that they've ever done because.
Like I said, I appreciate the work that they put into those. I appreciate the work they put into the Ultimate stuff, but yeah, just the Pops. I mean, they're beautiful. They're amazing. They've got fans like as yourself and so many others, but. My problem, at least as a collector and as somebody who goes to toy shows, is I've seen so many guys that were strictly vintage toy dealers suddenly stop selling vintage toys and then moved strictly onto Pops because Pops make them more money. And I get it, but it's like, well, that's sad because a lot of these guys had some amazing amazing products for vintage toys, and then all of a sudden they just start selling Pops, and you're like, Kane County Toy Show this year was, I guarantee you that show was 70% Pops. Like, there was vintage toys there, but it was a lot of Funko Pops and a lot of modern shell-bought, store-bought merchandise from the last, year out there.
Wow. Really, you could get toys in 2020? I didn't realize that toy store shelves had.
That's because all the dealers and scalpers have them. That's why.
I'm just going to add in real quick for this Funko question. I've remained absolutely silent.
Good. Stay that way. What was the most money you spent on a toy?
Probably the most money that I've spent it was probably the Ghost Command playset for Filmation Ghostbusters. I don't think up until that point I had spent that much money on any one item in the collection, and that I dished out the money for.
What was the cheapest toy you bought?
Honestly, the cheapest toy I bought was, been so many years ago, but it was probably both of the Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future jets, so the Phantom Striker, and I don't remember what the bad guys one is called, but I bought both of those mint in box at a toy show for $5 a piece.
Wow, that's awesome.
And you got into a lot of this collecting before prices really took off. So
the story I always tell is that, for those of you who aren't familiar, Pixel Dan and I owned a toy store in 2001, 2002. And it was a physical store. It was called Dan and Devall's Toys and Collectibles, which is where I get Dave and Devall's Toys and Collectibles, because I always liked that name. Danny and I ran a brick and mortar toy shop. And when we opened that shop, we bought entire runs of Food Fighters on card to put in that store for $1 a piece. We bought on card and loose New Adventures of He-Man figures and vehicles for literally next to nothing. And I bought an entire boxed collection of Brave Star stuff to put in the store to sell for probably less than $100.
Wow.
So, but yeah, I've been buying oddball stuff since then. And yeah, back then, even up until about 8 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, a lot of that stuff was just super affordable. But it came to the point where you had these guys finishing up collections, G.I. Joe, Transformers, Star Wars, these guys would finish these collections, buy everything they could for those lines, and they moved on to the ancillary lines, and that's where the prices started to shoot up. That's why today you see prices for Centurion drones, like people wanting $2,000 a piece for one of them, and I'm like, holy crap, people, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm going to go in the corner and just cry over hearing about how much you spent on a case of Food Fighters.
Yeah, they were literally $1 a piece.
Wow.
Because nobody wanted to buy them back then. Nobody was buying that stuff back then. It was all useless junk to people. Like, they didn't want to buy that.
I do want to point out that a Food Fighter now, on the low end, is about 80 times what you paid for it.
Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous.
Very, very crazy. Well, you just answered the ancillary question, which was, what was the best deal you ever got on a figure that may have been worth quite a bit more than you paid?
Well, but even back then, that stuff wasn't worth more than what we paid.
Right.
I mean, we were paying retail for that stuff back then, which even we were like, because we were buying it for $1 a piece and charging $3 a piece for them on card. And they never sold. That's the thing. That's where Danny got his entire Food Fighters collection from, was because they didn't sold. So Danny just took them all home and opened them.
And then he got another set from me.
Yeah, pretty much.
We're going to skip question 25 because you're not collecting anything right now. Sort of, you're trying to get rid of the stuff.
That's not entirely true, though, Mike. It's there is stuff that I still am actively hunting and buying. Like I said, mostly, Transformers. Hasbro keeps reeling me in by doing, Studio Series 86, which I'm like, I see those and go, you sons of bitches, stop it. The Transformers, the Earthrise stuff, Power of the Prime, like not so much Power of the Primes, but like Combiner Wars was huge. Earthrise, there's still figures in those waves that I'm looking for that I missed. Kingdom, there's still stuff I buy because they're doing a lot of G1 inspired stuff in that line. So I'm like, well, I guess I'm buying those.
Yeah, if I wasn't strictly Funko in my collecting nowadays, and I had the extra cash, I would so get Leader Galvatron and Commander Class Rodimus, because those toys look just like what they looked like in the movie, and the Rodimus is like
Galvatron not so much, since he's not. I don't know. He looks a little on the weird side to me a little bit. I don't know if they've ever quite done a good modern take on G1 Galvatron or on the cartoon version. But that the Rodimus is pretty special. Like, he's pretty cool looking.
Yeah, he is. All right, Josh, stop playing with your paper and ask him the next question.
I'm getting my research prepared.
Sure you are.
This is Devall. This is the show. So I'm making sure. Actually, I was just taking a toy out of a bag.
Yeah, you're fired. You're not going to be on the Pixel Dan episode.
You got Pixel Dan?
Potentially, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Hey, Devall. So we do know the answer to this question. I'm going to try to evolve it in the midst of me asking it. So the question is, do you visit toy shows or conventions? I'm going to change this question a little bit. When you have visited toy shows, we know you do. I've seen you with them. Do you have a strategy or methodology when you go to these shows? Do you bring a certain amount of money knowing what you're searching for, or do you like just finding out what happens?
Usually, like Kane County, for instance, I would go with $200. And I wouldn't go with anything in mind that I was looking for. And we literally would walk the aisles, and I would see what everybody has. And there would be some stuff that I would buy immediately, some stuff I might come back for, some stuff I would kind of look at and go, I don't really need that, and keep going. So there was never quite anything in mind. Like, I like to go, like, I think you had kind of posed this question to me a lot, as to why we didn't film these shows and film hunts. And it was always because, and my answer to you has always been the same. It's always because I want to shop. I'm not going to the show to work. Even though it would be great content, yes. At the time in my head, I'm like, we don't make any money on any of this content. And the money we make is like, I don't get paid for like 2 years on it. So I just want to go and shop. Like, that's literally all I want to do. I want to go shop. I want to go talk to my friends, and I want to see what I can find. Like, that's my goal at a toy show, and that's not changing as I stop collecting and sell this collection. I still want to go to toy shows because I still want to see the people that I know, see the dealers that I know, talk to them, see what's going on, see what's selling well, and just have a good time. So,
and part of me making that suggestion is A, you and Dave and a lot of the people you run into are ridiculously entertaining.
Yeah.
But also B, as someone who has either not been able to go or been behind the table trying to sell, I kind of want to live vicariously through you because I don't get to go and shop.
Well, true, and I always understand that, and then I understand that, and I always I always try not to be, because I know the reason why I'm not filming it is selfish, because I don't want to do it.
No,
I'm going to that, but no, I'm telling you, this is how I feel. I'm going to that show. I'm paying money to get in that gate. I want to go shop, and selfishly, I'm I could make this content for people like you and other people who can't go to the show who want to live vicariously through that. I'm but honestly, I just want to go and shop, and meh. And that's not a strike against you or anything. That's literally my mindset at these shows, because part of it is because when I worked for Figures.com before that new toy smell, and I spent 3 years going to San Diego Comic-Con and Toy Fair, you couldn't go to those things and just shop. You couldn't go to those things and be a fan. Toy Fair, of course, you have to be pressed to get in, but Comic-Con, I've never been able to go to San Diego Comic-Con as just a fan and take my time and enjoy the scenery. It was always work for me, and I vowed, I'm never going to do this again. I'm not going to do this again. And I did it for a while with Pop Culture Network, and that was a mistake. And I was like, I do not want to do this again. This is terrible.
Even as a fan, I have never had an interest in actually experiencing that show, because I've been podcasting since late 2008. We started the network in 2009, and I see what Comic-Con has become over the last decade or so, and it's fine. That's fine. That's what it's become, and that's what it is. That's whatever. It's just too darn big for me. I would so need to have a game plan of, I want to see this, this, and this, and this, and this, if I can even see this and this. And it's so overwhelming.
It really is, and it, but it's not just Comic-Con. It's a lot of the conventions like that now have become, C2E2 has become that way. It's very overwhelming to where they have so much stuff going on at one time. Even stuff that's not comic or toy related, stuff like Gen Con. If you've ever been to Gen Con for board games or role-playing games, it's the same way. If you don't go in with a game plan, like Dave and I, the one year Dave and I went for my 40th birthday, we went, and we didn't have a game plan. We just were we're just going to go on Sunday, shop, and come home. I'm I don't care about going to any, in any demos or anything, or trying to get into games. I just want to go. I want to shop the dealer floor. I want to buy a bunch of stuff, and I want to come home.
Now, and don't take me saying anything as you should only work for us, Devall. If there's anything that's been 100% clear about you in the umpteenth amount of years you've been doing this, you love the hobby, you love the experience. You have no obligation to film or put all of that level of work into filming a vlog or a toy hunt or anything.
Right.
Because I think if you found that to be something that was just so much work and just so much, let me rephrase this. Obviously, living through a camera and experiencing a lot of that through the camera, you don't always connect to it the way that I think that comes through when you are met in person or in your podcast or anything like that, where you're really describing your passion for the hobby. So I think, again, me selfishly saying, oh, I'd love to see it because you're fun and you're awesome is my thing. But it's the same reason why our mutual friend Mark probably will never work at Disney World, because he doesn't want to ruin the magic either. And I think that's the same thing.
It's not like my retirement from YouTube isn't about the fact that doing these videos has ruined my love for the hobby. It's just quite the opposite. It's just become I'm 44 years old. I don't know how much longer I want to film and edit videos. I'm just I've been literally filming and editing videos in one form or another for something since I was in high school, and I'm I don't want to do this anymore. So, my love of the hobby has never changed, and I don't think it'll ever change. I think there's something about toys, and I think for a lot of us that is such a nostalgic. A lot of people look down upon it and say, "Oh, you're just looking at the world through rose-tinted glasses," but it's more about remembering these amazing parts of our lives that. Mm-hmm. There were other amazing things as I got an adult, marrying the love of my life, was an amazing memory, and I never want to forget that. Things like that. But for me, there's something about toys that always brings me back to, as I sit here in this office recording, I can look across to my wife's work desk, and there is a bookcase filled with New Kids on the Block memorabilia and toys. And that's the kind of thing that I love. I love seeing that stuff, and I love being able to share that love and that knowledge. When Carrie and I got married, she was not a collector. She was not into this stuff. She didn't. To her, it is just. Even to this day, to her, it is just stuff. And at the end of the day, yes, it is just stuff. But there's something really cool about being able to look at something that you owned as a child or as a teenager, and going, this is cool. This brings a lot of great memories. This is something I cherish, and I love it.
And talk about such a naturally perfect segue to the next question. Well done, Jason. I don't know if you have the script in front of you, but...
No, he doesn't.
What do you think it is about our generation? I'm 37. You said you're 44.
I'm 41.
41, you're right in between us. That's actually
I'm the middle child. That's kind of scary.
Yeah. That's literally perfect. What do you think it is about our generation that causes our childhood toys to mean so much more to us, for instance, than our parents' generation? Especially because you brought up your stepdad earlier. I think that's such a perfect question at this point.
But it's interesting. So if you think about the world of action figures, you think about how long action figures have been around. Action figures have been around since the invention of G.I. Joe by Hasbro in 1960. I'm probably going to get the date wrong. 63, 64?
Yeah, something like that.
Somewhere around there. The date might be wrong. I apologize. But, action figures were birthed in the 60s by G.I. Joe because they didn't want to call G.I. Joe a doll. And you look at these generations that followed since the birth of even Barbie and G.I. Joe, and you see that it's not just our generation that is fascinated by the things of their youth. It is... it's those generations as well. And even beyond that, you've got guys that collect tin toys because that's what they grew up with. They grew up with, these amazing tin toy collections as a child, and they've gone back to hunt that. So I don't even think it's necessarily about our generation. It's more about the personal connection to an item, to a series, to a line, to anything that continues to bring you back to that. That makes you, fills you with this kind of feeling of love and appreciation. My love of Disney is very much the same way as my love of toys. My love of Jim Henson and the Muppets is very much same way as my love of toys. The knowledge of all that, like, it's all intermixed. So it's not. It's not one generation. It's every generation that's come before us, and the generations that will come after us. The kids that grew up in the 90s have their own things toy-wise that they go after. The kids that grew up in the 2000s are going after, you look at the popularity of Pokemon cards, Bakugan, Yu-Gi-Oh!, a lot of the stuff. It's the same idea. It's something, it's much like wrestling. It's cylindrical. It keeps going in this big circle.
Yeah.
And what is not interesting to us that someone has grown up with will be interesting to them as they get older. So.
Yeah, I find this hilarious. I never knew this about G.I. Joe. The original work was America's Movable Fighting Man, AM, FM. I'm like, oh, it's a radio play. And yes, 1964.
I was right on the money. Okay.
Yep. All right. What is your motivation for purchasing toys to display, play, fiddle? We talked about this a little bit earlier, that you're an ADHD kind of toy collector. So describe in slightly more detail your style of and your way of collecting.
It's I don't think I have don't think I can really nail that down to like an explanation of style. It's more along the lines of, in the back of my head, I know, like I'll go into a toy show without a list, but in the back of my head, I know there's certain things, if it's a board game or whatnot, I know there's certain things I keep my eye out for. And if I see something that goes along with what I've got in the back of my head, I will probably buy it. So it just depends on, it's not even if I have a attachment to the item or a history with it. It becomes more of, I remember seeing that in a book. I always wanted it. Here it is. I'll probably buy it. That kind of thing.
Right. Absolutely. Take it away, Josh.
Oh, that's back to me. You only had one question. I've got like 10 coming up. I'm bad at math.
That's because I'm old and I'm tired of talking.
So, Devall, you are very much in tune with a lot of toys that really span a lot of age groups. And that's, I think, one of the most unique things about your collection. But have you ever purchased a toy for a child based on your own opinions of the toy, maybe because of your previous childhood experience or recent knowledge? Have you ever said, I know this based on my experience, you're going to love it?
No, because I think that is a inaccurate way to treat children. I think that's a terrible thing to do, especially I see so many toy collectors who are parents forcing their toys on their kids. And while the kids like it, those parents get very upset later on in life when those kids no longer want anything to do with said toy line. I've always been more along the lines of, you let the kids, if it's an older toy line or a property, you give them the opportunity to discover it themselves. You don't force them to sit down to watch it. You don't force them to play with it. You give them the opportunity and the tools to discover it for themselves and let them see if they fall in love with it themselves. I have never bought anything for a child based on my own preference and been like, here you go, kid. You'll love this. I loved it as a kid. You'll love it too. Like I said, just because I don't believe in that ideology. But I have given toys to kids who have come over. When we first moved in, we had a housewarming party. And I'll be honest, I don't remember whose daughter it was. Somebody that Carrie knew, I think, had a little girl. And the little girl was fascinated with my Rainbow Brights that I had on the shelf. And she really, really wanted one. So I just reached up on the shelf, grabbed one, and gave it to her. And she adored that thing all night long. She loved it. She went home with it. So, but again, that you give them the tools and the opportunity to discover something new and let them fall in love with it in their own way.
And I think that's going to cover our next question. So we'll move past that because our numbering system is probably thrown out the window at this point. So you have, in the last year or so, especially because of COVID, sort of demonstrated a skill that you have that many people didn't know. So I'm just going to throw this question out there. Do you do any sort of toy modifications or customs, whether it be painting, building, diorama building, or anything like that?
I don't customize toys a whole lot. I do a lot of painting. It's not something new. It's something I have painted model kits for the last 24 years, but it's always been character kits, resin kits, vinyl kits. But I did this last year at a garage sale, found a loose Toxic Crusaders Major Disaster and bought it. It was like $1. I bought it with the intention, because it was beat up, it was nasty looking. I bought it with the intention of, I'm going to repaint this, and I sat down and repainted it. And if you follow me on Instagram under Puppet Devall, you can go back and find it and see the picture of that finished product, a Major Disaster. Not only that, but you can find the stuff that I've actually painted. But I haven't got to paint in many months because Carrie and I have been really busy, and I haven't been able to make the time to sit down and paint. We've been remodeling a bathroom and doing a lot of other stuff. So, but I love painting. I love painting models. I love painting miniatures. I've gotten really good at painting miniatures. I'm not great. There's always someone that's way better than you when it comes to painting. I have a buddy here in town named Rhett Tudor who teaches the painting class, was teaching the painting class, and is going to again at our local gaming store, Titan Games. And he is a phenomenal painter, and I admire his stuff so much, and he's such a great teacher. But God, I love painting miniatures so much and models.
Do you paint kitchen cabinets by any chance? My wife is asking.
No. Tell her
Okay.
she's out of luck.
Damn. Okay, sorry. So the next question we have is a little unrelated to that, but I think this actually goes back to almost episode 1 of Dave and Devall.
The Christmas Nazi.
Okay, I wasn't going to go there necessarily, but I think
That's
it goes back
episode
to
1.
almost...
Episode 1 is literally called the Christmas Nazi.
Okay, so I know what I'm listening to when I go to the gym tomorrow.
Yes.
Damn that John McClane.
Do you think... The reason I asked is I think I remember hearing the story of the motivation behind creating the show and some of the thoughts you may have, especially as the toy industry has been changing recently. Yeah. Do you think toy companies should specifically have adult collector toys, child toys, or find a way to produce both or a mix of both?
Problem is, I think when it comes to action figures, which has now become a very niche market, it seems like kids that get to the age to play with action figures, 8 to 12, is basically what the industry standard is, I think, these days. Those kids they have tablets, they have phones, they have PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One. The action figure marketplace is a much smaller niche marketplace now. And Dave and I have talked about this before. Eventually, it's going to become what it's becoming now, which people are very pissed about. The way that Super 7 does business with Ultimates, the way that Mattel Creations and HasLab is doing things, it's going to go to the Kickstarter way, which is what a lot of toy companies have done anyway. They're going to make toys to cover pre-orders, and then that's it. They're not going to find a lot of the stuff in stores. You're not going to get a lot of it. You either back it and pre-order it when it's available, or you miss out and have to pay way marked up prices. The toy industry as we know it has been changing and continues to change, especially with the death of Toys R Us, where now there's not an outlet in the United States to get oddball toy lines on a shelf space because real estate space is so minute in Walmart and Targets, which are your big box retailers, not in Walmart, Target, Myers, all these other stores that are major, supermarket retail organizations. The real estate is so minute and so tiny that there's no way to get really an original brand new toy line on there. So that's why you see in the aisles, a lot of it is licensed, stuff or stuff that they know people will buy. Masters Universe reissue stuff. Ghostbusters, they just reissued the Kinder's Ghostbusters stuff, because they knew people were going to buy them. Now there was supposed to be a movie out last year for it, but still, but there's not space to do what they were able to do at one time, which is come up with these original IPs, create these toy lines for these original IPs, put them in a toy aisle, and let people decide if they're good or not. So the toy industry eventually, I don't even see really action figure aisles in the toys in stores in the next 10 years. Honestly, I would see them all going the way of the dodo, and most of that stuff being available for pre-order online, or much like the NECA shelf in Target being located like back in electronics in one section, and it's collector's items. That's where it's going.
Yeah. Besides, NECA's stuff is just way too expensive.
Well, I mean, but that's the problem, and people always point that out. People point that out with the Ultimate stuff too, with Super 7, and NECA's stuff is way cheaper than Super 7.
Yeah, it's Super 7.
Well, the difference is that NECA has real estate partner, retail partners. They've had retail partners for 20 years. They were in Toys R Us shelves, and they were only at Toys R Us and comic book stores for years. So, now they've got in Walmart and Target, the price is a little cheaper, but they're still making these high quality products, which, have to have those higher price tags because plastic's not cheap these days. No. People seem to forget that when they bitch about prices. Plastic's not cheap anymore. It's not cheap to make these molds. The molds are where a lot of the cost for the figures come from because metal molds are not cheap to make, and they're even more expensive now than they once were. Super 7 stuff's so expensive because they have no retail partners. Like, they're not technically in stores when it comes to their Ultimate lines. Yes, the Reaction line is in stores, but no one wants to take a chance on the Ultimate lines because they've already got NECA stuff in stores. They've already got this other stuff. So Super 7 then has to turn around and go, entirely online real estate, to do their retail business with pre-orders, and that And that's why those figures are $60, $65.
Yeah.
And Super 7 also has that great model that, okay, let me rephrase that. Super 7 has the unique model. I don't want to say it's great.
Yeah, it's not great, but it's unique.
It's unique where they only make what they get orders for. So you do sit on that pre-order for a while.
Yes.
6 months to 8 months to even a year in some cases.
But it's the same thing that Mattel, that Matty Collector, eventually started doing towards the end of their run, where they were just selling, they would sell this many and then that's it. Like if you missed out, you missed out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they're at least saying like, hey, this is the price point we have. If we only make 2,000, we know that's the price point it's going to be. If we make 10,000, price point doesn't change. It's still going to be that price, which isn't the worst thing in the world.
No, but it's just the way, like I said, it seems to me and to Draper and to many others that's where the industry is going to go. Like it's inevitable. Like it's. I don't think anything's going to stop that oncoming train. It's just going to keep coming.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And this is why I stick with Funko. And I'm sure Funko will have a shelf life at some point, but until that happens, at least I can get whatever I want from whatever line I want if I want it. And if I don't want it, I don't have to buy it.
That's true.
All right. Do you have a my parents got rid of my toys story?
I do not. That never happened because the basement flooded. I mean, seriously, Mother Nature stole pretty much all my toys away. My stepfather never threw out any of my toys. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, there was a bunch in the attic. And when I moved out, he actually got up in the attic and was like, "Hey, do you want this stuff?" And I forgot this stuff was up there. And it was like the RoboForce, RoboController vehicle and a bunch of other stuff. And I was like, well, hell, shit, yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah.
I forgot it was up there. I didn't realize it was up there. But never had them, they never threw anything away. I had stuff break, but, I never threw anything away.
Well, the reason why I asked that question, everyone will hear my answer to this question in episode 113 of the podcast, is because I do. And at 6 years old in 1986, my dad said I was too old for toys. So this whole 8 to 12 range, no, I don't believe in that.
Well, it's not, the 8 to 12 thing isn't like official. It's
right.
It's usually where they come up with that number,
Yeah.
Huh? Where you? Because they're not Yum Yums? Ow! Ow. Rude host? Rude host. Why am I a rude host? Rude host. Why am I a rude host? Rude host. Because we're looking at Connects and not Legos? Rude host. Oh. He's not saying rude host.
All right, so we've talked about this the whole episode, but I want a different answer to this because we've already gotten the story of, you're selling your collection and you're doing this and you're doing that. The question actually is, was there ever a moment when you were done with toys? Have you ever considered stopping being a collector or even selling your whole collection? Basically, the answer I want to this is, when was the moment when you were like, I need to get rid of everything?
Right after King County this year.
Wow.
I had come home with very little. If you watch, I did a haul video.
Yep.
And I didn't really come home with a whole lot. Some talking dolls, stuff like that. But it was trying to figure out where to put these things.
Mm-hmm.
And they sit on the floor forever until I finally started to rearrange. And as I rearranged, I thought, I literally, there's no more room for anything. Like, I literally cannot put anything else down here. It is full. My Little Mermaid room has basically become a catch-all. Like, there's shelves in there. There's all this stuff. Like, I literally have no more room. And it was after that show when I looked around and I thought, I need to sell all this. Like, it's all going to go. And I thought about it, let it sit for a while. And every time I'd go back to think about it, and think about getting rid of it or go down there and imagine the basement empty. Normally, I feel like most people would get this pit in the feeling of their stomach, like, oh God, why are you thinking this? You can't sell it. This is crazy. I still to this day don't have that feeling. I sold the Ghost Command playset, which is a pivotal piece for any collection. It took me 5.5 years to find one. Right. And I sold it, And honestly, I look at his pictures and I'm so ecstatic and happy that it's so well loved and it, they adore it. I don't have any regrets. Like, even to this point, like doing all of this, taking all these pictures and getting everything kind of packed up for this auction. I still to this date, I don't have that feeling. I don't look at it and go, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. I go, I need to be doing more.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is the same thing with me when I stopped, and people will hear this in episode 113. When I had to sell my stuff in 2011, and I had a minuscule collection at best, and I, got maybe $200-300 for it. But I'm like, okay, I'm okay. I don't need this stuff anymore. I need to move on, and as I mentioned earlier with SDCC, I might have mentioned that off air. I don't remember at this point because we've been recording. But it's one of those things where in 2012, I spent 6 hours on a podcast live reacting to every major announcement SDCC did. And I enjoyed whatever toys that were shown off or announced or whatever, but I still had no compunction to get them, kind of. Right. Like, I didn't need them, kind of thing. And it wasn't until 2016, 2017 when I saw WWE 2K Stone Cold Steve Austin pop and Batgirl 66 pop. I'm like, ooh, Funko. Hi.
And it's interesting that I talk about not having that feeling. I think the people around me in my circle were more concerned about me selling my collection than about than I was. A lot of the concern was, my wife Carrie, God bless her, love her. She had more of a problem with me selling because we went down there to sort it, and she got close to hyperventilating because she was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're doing that!" Like not like excitedly, but like, "Oh my God, are you sure that you want to do this?"
Yeah.
And both her and Dave, both were worried about my mental health and if I was having a midlife crisis, because I'm at that age. And I kept, I assured them both, I'm like, I'm really fine. Like, I am not having a midlife crisis. I am not contemplating, I don't have suicidal tendencies. That was something else, because people were telling Dave, you should check on him, because when people do something like this, they usually kill themselves. And I'm like, trust me. I'm like, I am not, I'm not dying. I don't have suicidal thoughts. I literally have just got to the point with the collection where it's like, it's so much stuff.
It's so overwhelming. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, while it's got nostalgic properties to it, while it is valuable to some, at the end of the day, it's just stuff. Like, they're just toys. They're just stuffed animals. They're just board games. Like, a lot of that stuff could always be replaced. And I can keep the stuff that I want to keep, but at the end of the day, it's just stuff. And I don't need that much stuff.
Yeah, and like you said in the video, and again, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, that I will link the toy walkthrough video with Danny. I'm also going to put up my lovely comparison photos from when the time both of y'all dumbasses, made me cry in 2011 and made me cry in 2021, bastards. But it's one of those things where, like you said earlier, even though you're selling your entire collection, you're still keeping certain key pieces that you want. You're not leaving the toy. You're still a toy collector. You're still going to look at the stuff. You're not like, oh my God, I'm turning my basement into a dentist's office. Like, you're not doing anything major. And yes, you're right. As far as mental health goes, when someone makes a decision like this, it's because, like I said, your collection, like when we had Dave on, and Dave said this on his episode, again, I will link that in the show notes. You're his power of attorney, whatever. Like, if something happens to him, you're going to be responsible for his thing. And both of y'all's collections, even Danny's collection, even Josh's collection, even though it's only 1 or 2 rooms for Josh, they're so massively huge that mentally, it breaks you down to think about whether I should sell it or not. Does it still give me joy? Does it still, and I'm sure it does still give you joy, but it's one of those things, like I'm saying, there's too much of it. And there's usually so much of a good thing that you're like, oh crap, I need to do something about this.
And people commented on Danny's video. You know, I strategically, along with Danny, we talked about this a lot, but I strategically knew I was going to make this announcement of my retirement on our YouTube, and I knew that something had to be done with Danny, because Danny and I started this journey together online.
Absolutely.
And I knew that it kind of had to end that way to a degree. Like it's not ending right.
Right.
That was like, but I also knew using Danny and allowing him to come in and film this haul video, buy stuff, would help me get the word out even more about this toy sale. So I knew going into it, like, I'm like, this is strategically, this is the best way to do this. Like, everybody gets something out of it, and everybody gets something they need out of it. So
absolutely, and it frees up your basement to do whatever you want to do with it.
Yes, which eventually that'll be revealed. It's going to be, it's probably going to be January, February before I finish that video, because I am documenting as I go through personally. I'm kind of like filming short little segments. Like, I'm not documenting the whole thing, because that's just, it's
too much.
It's too much to document, and it's just me down there usually. So I'll usually turn the camera on. I'll shut Alexa off because I don't want any music playing, because I don't want YouTube to be like, hey. But I'll flip the camera around on the phone and talk for a couple minutes and kind of show the progress and talk about what's been going on. And so there will be a video of that, and then the ultimate reveal of what will be done with part of the space down there.
Very cool. Very cool.
I think it was interesting for me watching, because you and I have done a couple toy deals here and there, and it's always fun looking at your collection and being like, oh, I remember selling that to Devall. That was a thing.
Yeah.
And still at the same rate, I was really happy that you gave some of that stuff a good home, and I think it'll still continue to find another good home somewhere else. It's another chapter.
That's kind of my thought with it, is that the collection has become so massive that it's become time to let others enjoy the collection, enjoy their own pieces or portions of that collection. So, especially
if it's something that they have been just after, and they're looking for the best example of it, which a lot of the stuff you have, is very, very well taken care of and complete and looks fantastic. So someone's going to be very, very lucky when they pick up that stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, being a toy collector is like a never-ending story. When you're done, there's always a next chapter. What is something that does not have a toy of it you'd love to have in toy form?
I don't know if there's anything particular that never got a toy, because I think most of the stuff that I had wanted, whether it be the animated Beetlejuice series or the original 87 Masters of the Universe film, the live action one, we've gotten toys for all that stuff now.
That William Stout collection is amazing.
Yeah, like, we've got the William Stout collection. We've gotten an animated Beetlejuice figure. Like, there's not really anything left out there that I go, I wish they would have made something with toys of that, because it's pretty much everything at this point, thanks to a lot of these companies that was super popular. Labyrinth or, Dark Crystal, stuff like that. They've all had toys made out of them.
What is a toy that you love to have scaled up and functional for real people? So the basic genesis of this question is, over on the pull bag, I ask, what is one comic item you'd love to have in the real world, like Green Lantern's ring or Batman's Batarang, that kind of thing?
Probably, I don't know, it's not necessarily a vehicle or anything, but I'd want a life-size scaled-up Galoob Inspector Gadget, just because that's one of my all-time favorite toys. And I think a life-size version of that with, like, the helicopter and that you could pop in and out and stuff like that, I think that'd be cool.
I could totally see you having a life-size costume you could put on that duplicates all of those features.
But you see, I'm not a cosplayer though, so it would never.
I'm not.
Like I've never had any desire to go down that road. But yeah,
not even as a cosplay though. I think I could totally see you having a helicopter pop out of your head and just go to Walmart.
That'd be fun.
That would be fun.
Go Devall helicopter.
And it just kind of pops out, and people just see you slowly floating over Springfield's skies.
All right, we are up to question number 37 in a row. Take it away, Josh.
So, Devall, I've met your spouse. Your spouse.
My spouse, yes.
Your spouse. I've met your spouse. I have listened to Married to the Collection for several years.
Whatever happened to that?
To interrupt Josh's question, the same thing that happened in Collection Expansion Extravaganza. There was a number of years after a while there that we just didn't go out as much because there was no reason to, because we couldn't really buy anything because there was no room to put anything. So Married to the Collection kind of just faded by the wayside because we didn't have anything like adventure-wise or toy-wise to talk about with one another because we hadn't done anything for a while. So.
And I'll add that Married to the Question, or not Married to the Question, excuse me. Married to the Collection. Married to the Collection. Listening to that right around the time that I actually first got married was incredibly insightful because you really heard a lot from Carrie, from her perspective of not being someone who understood having a lot of stuff to being married to someone who had a lot of stuff and learning what that was like, and especially learning that relationship between the two of you. And I'm sort of almost answering this question for you, so I'm going to stop, but I'm going to finish the question. How has your spouse dealt with your collection?
You know, it was when Carrie and I first got together, because we'd known each other for 22 years, something like that. I have known Carrie almost as long as I have wrestled because her ex-fiance wrestled for us. And I met Carrie through there. And I was one of the only few people that hung out with her ex-fiance that Carrie actually liked. Not at that time, but like she could tolerate me. She was excited to see me. We joked. We got along just great together. When we got married, when we first started dating, she knew I had a bunch of stuff. She knew I had a bunch of movies and I had a bunch of action figures because she'd been to the apartment. So she'd seen all this stuff. She kind of knew what she was getting into when we were dating. So she was okay with it. When we moved in together, she kind of knew, I had a room upstairs that had a bunch of stuff in it. It was around the time, though, when my mother was like, hey, she had been paying for a storage locker for me and for her, but most of it was my stuff from the store, stuff from, just the stuff that I didn't take that wouldn't fit in the apartment. It was all in storage. And my mom was like, hey, I'm going to stop paying on the storage shed. And Carrie was like, what storage shed? And I was like, oh, yeah, I never told you because I never thought about it. But, yeah, we've got the storage shed. Most of it's mine. She's like, okay. I was like, so we're going to have to go get that. And she's like, oh, okay. So, we took my Ford Ranger at the time and went over there to pick it up. And Mom opened the door, and I just remember Carrie going, what the hell? Because it was full. It was a big, huge storage shed, and it was full of crap, and it was all my crap. So she never really understood the collecting aspect of it until we moved into this house that we currently live in, and we were unpacking, and she discovered all of my Muppets and Disney stuff, and she became enamored and just immediately fascinated. And then that started this journey with her of loving to go out. She kind of learned what to look for, what to find. So she will look through like comics and stuff and pull stuff out for me too. And so she's gotten, it started out as it's just stuff you don't need it to. Hey, this is kind of cool. Do you want to get this? To a degree, not all the time, but to a degree.
So obviously, as she grew to appreciate that, and you started doing it as more of a couple at times, going on these really fun trips that I loved hearing about.
Yeah.
So that part of collecting, perhaps you evolved past, but prior to making your decision to you're in kind of partial retirement collecting, you're still going to be collecting. But what was something that you struggled with? And I'm going to provide, and you can use these answers if you'd like. A lot of people say the cost and the space. Was there anything else with collecting that might be a little bit different than that? Or were those your two main issues, the cost and space?
I think for everyone it comes down to space. I know Draper's kind of in that aspect now where he'll get something new in and I'll look at him and go, where the hell are you going to put that? And he goes, I don't know, I'll find room for it. I think for a lot of people it comes down to space. It was never about cost for me because we always got deals on stuff and not like because I, finagled deals out of people. It was just like I just got lucky and found a lot of the stuff for stupid cheap or bought it early on. But it's these days now it's and I kind of told Dave this and he'll carry like it's more about I want the experience. I don't need the stuff. The stuff's fun to look at. I want the experience because Carrie and I we still go on these great trips and have a heck of a lot of fun together and enjoy each other's company when we're out and love shopping and people watching and stuff like that. And that's what it's become more for me now is it's less about the stuff and more about the adventure.
And again, I'm also hitting that same point. So I'm looking at everything and yeah, sometimes it is more of the adventure and the memories you can look back at. But I think you also brought up the same point. I'm going to, for a little bit of a counterpoint, is that sometimes the adventure is finding the stuff.
Sometimes it is. I mean, there's always that aspect of the adventure being the stuff that you find. And that's very much true, especially with Carrie and I's trips, is that sometimes that is, in fact, we marvel at some of the stuff that we've been able to find. But at the end of the day, it's still even though the stuff's involved, it's still about the adventure. Like I want experiences, which is something Carrie's kind of been nagging at me for years about, is when we get old, retire, she wants adventure. She wants experience, And I kind of, as I get older, I start to feel the same way. It's like, I really want experiences. I want to go do something we've never done before. Let's go somewhere we've never been before. Let's go do this. And while we're out, if we manage, if we happen to stroll into an antique store or something, then we will. But
as we're talking about experiences, a lot of that sometimes comes down to great memories. Do you have one positive memory? You have tons of positive memories. Do you have one positive and one negative memory that you have with buying toys?
Positive memories they're in abundance, especially with buying stuff. I've got to meet a lot of great people. Our buddy dealer Dan, Spike Forrester. I'm friends with Jordan Himbro from Toy Hunter, fame. Same with Steve Savino. Like I've met those guys, I've hung out with those guys, I've talked to those guys many times. I got to meet. I met David Gall, who people aren't familiar with the name, but he's a third generation auctioneer. He was on Toy Hunter. He was part of that group.
And he has amazing hair.
He does have amazing hair for a man his age. He's got an amazing Star Wars collection. He's a prototype collector, so he's got some really cool stuff. But I've met a lot of great people enjoying this hobby, and that's what's great to me is the people that I've met and that I've become friends with. Flood, guys like you, Mike, all these different guys that I've got to meet because of this hobby have been great. As for the more disappointing aspects of the hobby, I think I'd have to go back to a lot of the auctions that Dave and I have been to together, toy auctions and that, where they just bring out the worst people who could bid on any certain items. I've just seen some terrible people at these auctions that I'm like, dude, I would see these guys again at shows and avoid their table because I'm like, I don't want anything to do with these guys because they're garbage. But that's kind of the negative aspect of the hobby is you meet a lot of times, especially in toys, more in sports cards and stuff, but it brings out all the worst in people.
Sports cards are still a thing?
Well, yes, and Carrie's motioning to me reminded me of a story, but Carrie, where was that? Was that at a estate sale? Okay. Carrie and I were at an estate sale in St. Louis, and there was a whole bunch of toys we were going after. We were the first people there. We got there. The sale didn't start until 9:30 in the morning, and we got there at 3:00 in the morning. because I was like, well, if we're going to go for this stuff, we really need to be the first people there. So we went, pulled up. Carrie slept in the car. I went out and sat in this driveway, and just this stranger's driveway where this estate sale was happening at freaking 4 a.m, and just hung out there until the sale. And our buddy dealer Dan showed up. We made some friends, and there was a few people behind us, and we kind of had an idea where the stuff was inside. So as soon as they let us in, there was this mad rush, and Carrie got pushed down as people were like,
"What?"
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Like, these people that were behind us called in extra people to come help them, and they were like, I literally saw one of these dudes leap over a table to snatch up these trays of figures and run out with them, and it was like, holy crap, people! I'm going to cuss here, and Mike may beep it out. That kind of shit is the worst of humanity when it comes to this hobby, are people like that who will push down a woman to get to toys. And I didn't actually get to see it happen. I saw the aftermath, and I wasn't sure what exactly had happened until she later told me. She was like, they pushed me down. I was like, what the hell?
Did I ever tell you, and maybe, Mike, I'll leave this up to you. Did I ever tell you, Devall, so you had suggested an estate sale appeared to me a couple of years ago. Yes. I don't know if you remember that. Did I ever tell you the result of that estate sale?
Vaguely, yes. You told me it was not a great experience.
Same thing, 4 o'clock in the morning. I go and I pull up to the house, and a guy greets me, knocks on my window, and he says, "Congratulations, you're number 2. And I said, "What?" And he was signing up everybody who showed up. He just took that responsibility to sign up everybody on a list in the order that they showed up.
Right.
He wasn't working for the company. He was just the first one there at probably 3 a.m. I see him once the employees start showing up at about 7 a.m. A bunch of us are talking in line. We're hanging out, having a good time, getting to know each other. I start finding out that nobody is really going after what I'm going after. I see this first guy in line. He palms an undisclosed amount of money to the employee. So the door opens. He is racing past everybody. Like, he kind of even shoved me a little bit. Runs down to the basement, gets down there, looks at the table. It was all packaged Star Wars figures. He just says, "I'm taking it all." And the guy, there's already someone standing right next to it, stacks it up and gives it to him, and he just walks away.
Yeah, estate sales are a weird beast. They're either really, really well done and really well controlled, or just a complete cluster. And most of the ones that Carrie and I have been to, save for one, have been a complete cluster, which is part of the reason why we really don't go to estate sales anymore, because it's just not worth the effort. Just because you're not so much that you're fighting with people, you're always fighting with people at auctions or at shows, but just the type of people that come out to estate sales just are not worth the hassle and the trouble of going. So if they want to fight other people for it, more power to them. I'm not going to be there for it.
Yeah, that's crazy. So like Josh has done throughout this 2 hours, I'm going to throw an audible before I ask the next of the last 3 questions. Tell us the story of Puppet Devall.
Puppet Devall, for those of you who don't know,
would have been the 66 Batman and the Batmobile. Hey guys, welcome to an all-new review right here on ToyWorldOrder.com, starring me, Devall, and my buddy, Puppet Devall.
No!
Why are you cowering? I hit you once.
And then the billboard with the kids in the garden, and there was a bar, and then the birds are
I'm nowhere as mean to you as far as
back in time.
Back in time. You don't get one.
I'm here back in time where I met Laura, because you're mean.
Where?
Biff. Who's Biff?
Hello? Think, Devall, think. I'm done. Where would you live if you went back in time before you met me? You'd be living with Bigfoot. Yeah, what's worse? Who's the lesser of two evils, me or Bigfoot?
Well, you're definitely all the lesser man.
Over on Toy World Order, at the beginning of Toy World Order even, actually as early as that new Toy Smell, I used a puppet. I wish Draper was here. He'd be able to tell you who made the puppets, the original ones. He knew the maker, and they were just these weird, folksy looking, puppets. Big old long arms, big old long legs. They could wrap around you. They were supposed to kind of be these fun little things that wrapped around you that were puppets. I bought him when I was 12 years old in Branson, Missouri.
Yeah, those go back to the early 80s. I had one growing up.
Yeah. So I've had the original Puppet Devall since I was 13, somewhere around that age. Mm-hmm. And he has lived with me ever since. And we used him in an episode of that new Toy Smell when we did the Muppet episodes. I thought it'd be funny for me to be a puppet for that episode and for Danny to react to this puppet version of me. So Puppet Devall kind of started in that vein. I used him several times when we did Toy World Order originally. BC Direct, who was one of the founders of Toy World Order out of California, we were doing this thing with Puppet Devall where he had a crush on BC Direct, so he had a picture of him and all this stuff. And it was this stupid thing that cracked us up that we thought was funny. And we kind of used him a few times during that. But it wasn't until Danny and I and Dave started working on board the show together that Puppet Devall really became what Puppet Devall is. And a lot of that has to do with Dave Draper. Because
Wait, what are you reading? What? Why is it every time that we get together and I come into frame, you now sigh at me?
Because you threw me in the day. You showed up with a mask and hit me and said Shadow Warrior.
Whoa.
Yes?
You showed up with a mask and hit me.
No.
With this stick.
No, please, no more. I review toys, you're great. I love your toys.
So back to the future.
Cruel habits.
So back to the future, huh, Doc Brown?
Yep. Yes.
Go back in time. It's funny because today's review actually has something to do with
wow,
Back to the Future.
That is amazing. What a coincidence. I almost spelled little top orders.
Dave would be in the shower, and his previous dog Casey, who has passed several years ago, sweet old. I think she was an Irish settler, and Dave's going to kill me if I get that wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what she was. Just a gorgeous, beautiful dog. She was so sweet. She was so goofy. But she would sit in his bathroom while he would shower, and he would talk in this voice like, oh, baby burps, that kind of voice, which became the Puppet Devall voice. But originally it was just, nonsensical stuff. And we started to actually, I don't think in the early episodes he even talked on camera. I think he just moved his mouth, and we later dubbed in his voice as Puppet Devall. Eventually we decided to have Puppet Devall start talking. And that's when Dave really created the persona of what Puppet Devall would become. That's honestly, it's all kudos to Draper, because Draper's the one who created that version of the character. Like the puppet existed, but Puppet Devall that became known is all in thanks to Dave Draper. Like it's all Dave's. It all comes out of Dave's evil, twisted little mind.
When you find out that Dave, who is a burly man,
yes,
is the one making that high-pitched voice.
Yes.
Kind of voice.
Yeah.
It's very surreal, to say the least.
Oh, no, it was super crazy at first. We would take trips to Toyman, and to entertain ourselves, I would have a conversation with Puppet Devall while Dave was driving, and it would turn into the most insane, ridiculous stuff that we could never film. When we would go to the Toyman toy shows, Dave and I would entertain each other in the car, and we would have conversations between myself and Puppet Devall, and they would be the most insane, ridiculous, stupid things that went off the rails that you could never film. But yeah, to hear that voice come out of Dave's mouth, and he's gotten better about it too, because the later episodes of Puppet Devall, he got better at enunciating in that voice, because that voice is very hard. Even I can't. I don't understand how Elmo's puppeteer does that voice. Like Kevin Clash was one thing, But this new guy, I see him do the voice, and I'm like, I don't know how you do it, man. But they've got really good at enunciating in that voice. I can't do it. Oh, I can do kind of this, all stuff. But you lose it quick when you start to enunciate certain things. But they've got really good at enunciating. So, it's all the Puppet Devall that everyone knows now is all thanks to Dave Draper. Like, I had very little to nothing to do with that. It's all literally, it's me reacting to Draper, literally.
I think in the future at some point we are going to have the four of us on here, and we are going to have to resurrect Puppet Devall because
well, I don't think Puppet Devall is ever quite really going to go away 100%. Like, right. I may not do videos, but you might see a Puppet Devall video every once in a while just because.
Yeah, that's cool.
And every so often you have to talk to somebody from the IRS, and that voice just comes up. You never know.
Yeah. That'll scare him away pretty fast. If you could create any toy, what would you want to create? So basically, any of the toy companies gives you the keys to the kingdom. You can do whatever you want. What toy would you want to create?
Honestly, I'm probably going to take a cop-out answer here. I wouldn't want to. only because I know how the toy industry works. I know the effort and the pain and sacrifice that goes into making a lot of these toy lines, and I am a lazy son of a bitch, and I don't want anything to do with
it. What is the one piece of advice you would give the toy collecting fandom?
If you're going to be in this hobby, understand how this hobby works. Not just vintage toy sellers, understand how the toy industry works. Because I see a lot of people complaining, especially right now with the shortages and Walmart shelves looking like they are, and people are blaming the toy companies. Like, Hasbro just doesn't. They obviously don't want to sell their stuff because they're not putting anything on the shelves. It's not that. It's especially right now, the chain of supply is so jacked up that there are literally boats on the ocean waiting to be unloaded and have been waiting to be unloaded for months. Shipping containers are astronomically priced right now, where they were $3,000 a container. They are now $12,000 to $15,000 a container. It's that kind of stuff. Like, if you don't understand the aspects of your hobby, and yes, a lot of the aspects are mundane, they're boring, you just want to deal with the toys, I get that. But that's the type of advice I have for a lot of people, that if you're going to get into a hobby, if you're going to get into something new, take the time to do the research, look around, read up on it, understand how that industry works. Like, when I got into tabletop board games, in the last 5 years, I didn't just jump in willy-nilly. Like, I started joining these groups and reading all this stuff and understanding more about how that industry had changed since the 90s, since the last time I was involved in it. And that kind of thing, learning about the Kickstarter campaigns and all that. So it's really something I've always strived. I strive on David Devall's too. When Dave and I talk about people complaining or arguing about certain things going on with toys and toy lines and why things are priced the way they are and this, that, and the other, I always go back to people need to understand how their hobby works. They need to understand what hobby they're in, why are they in it, how does it work, why does it work this way, why hasn't it changed. Like, you need to understand these different aspects to really grasp the hobby that you're in. It's probably not for everyone, but I feel like a lot more people would enjoy the hobby more if they had basic understandings of certain aspects of it.
Absolutely. What is advice you'd give to kids who enjoy toys?
Just enjoy toys. Like, at the end of the day, they're just toys. Mm-hmm. If they make you happy and you have fun, then cool. Like, continue to play with them, have fun, continue to let them make you happy. Don't pay any attention to the people arguing or complaining or telling you you're stupid because you like this certain toy or you like this certain company. Like what you like. The people that are hating, just let people like what they like. Let people enjoy a thing. Don't piss all over something just because you have a bad response to it or are angered by something. Like, just let somebody enjoy a thing. Like, why do you have to take the time out of your day to shit on somebody's thing? Just enjoy a thing. If you enjoy that thing, awesome. If I don't enjoy that thing, I'm glad you enjoy it. That's cool.
And we can always find something else that we both enjoy.
That's right.
All right, folks, we're going to take another quick ad break, and now we're going to come back and get some final thoughts and close it out right after this.
Kid? Yes. Shut up.
Beyond the Night is the GCRN's latest review podcast. We are covering everything in the Knight Rider television universe, from the classic 80s TV series to the 1991 reunion film, Team Knight Rider, and the 2008 relaunch series as well. So join TFG and Mike and Dion the Music Man as they go in-depth and Beyond the Night only on GeekCast Radio Network. You can find Beyond the Night in iTunes and on www.geekcastradio.com.
Kid? Yes, Michael. Just keep driving.
Hello, geeks and geekettes! Looking for a podcast that covers a vast array of topics? Then check out Altered Geek Unleashed, where we discuss our thoughts on this week's geeky news, tech, gaming, television shows, movies, cartoons, comics, and more. So, get altered, get geeky with the Altered Geeks. Every Friday on the GeekCast Radio Network.
One of the primary themes of ToyCast is that we focus on times past. We are who we are today because of the nostalgic memories and experiences from our childhood. Obviously, we wouldn't be doing this podcast if it weren't for the toys that make us so addicted to nostalgia. Times Past Collectibles in Chicago, Illinois is your primary go-to collectibles store to reclaim the toys that drove those memories and experiences. Specializing in action figures from all of your favorite toy lines like Star Wars, G.I. Joe, He-Man, Transformers, Silverhawks, Ghostbusters, TMNT, Mask, and more. Get your dose of nostalgia with a shop run by collectors for collectors. Whether you are looking for loose G.I. Joe Ice Cream Soldier, a packaged Leonardo, recent Star Wars Black Series figures, or an AFA-graded Boba Fett, Times Past Collectibles is bringing you back to your childhood. Visit the shop at 1450 North Ashland Ave in Chicago, just 2 blocks south of Ashland and North Ave. Call the shop at 847-830-1031 or email timespastcollectibles1982@gmail.com. You can also find them on Facebook. Just search Times Past Collectibles because, folks, it's past time that you get your collectibles.
The Toys of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe is available for pre-order now. This official guidebook is published by Dark Horse Books and features over 750 pages of photos and information on your favorite He-Man and She-Ra action figures. And don't miss out on the exclusive bundle pack available for pre-order now from PowerCon. This bundle includes the official guide as well as an exclusive character guide supplement that you won't be able to buy anywhere else. Don't miss out. You have the power.
Because the world needs another movie podcast.
The GeekCast Radio Network presents for your listening pleasure the Cinema Geek.
Hosted by Amanda, Kevin, Matt, and Dan.
Each week we dive headfirst in the landscape of movies as we discuss movie news, play movie games,
go in-depth on reviews,
and even have a top 10 countdown or two.
Also, don't miss our director retrospective series, where we review noted directors' movies film by film. Bottom line is, if you love movies and love podcasts, you need to experience the Cinema Geeks.
You can find us on iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, or GeekCastRadio.com.
On the Simplistic Reviews podcast, we talk movies. We talk TV. We talk...
Hello, Julie, what the heck are you doing?
Trying to make our spots sound more exciting by adding explosions.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could have got the point across with sound effects, not the real thing. Car.
Download the show on iTunes or at simplisticreviews.blogspot.com.
I'm sure your insurance company will cover that.
No, they won't.
No, they probably won't.
Hey, it's Wes from Poppin' Off Toys. Wanted to let you know about poppinofftoys.com. We can be your number one source for Funko collectible figures to add to your ever-growing collection. If you're in Nashville, Tennessee, we actually have a retail store that you can come by, 5916 Charlotte Pike. And for the rest of us, poppinofftoys.com is always open, and you can check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. And the name is just simply Poppin' Off Toys. Thank you so much, and always keep it poppin'.
All right, we are back here on ToyCast. This is episode 111. I have no idea what we're doing for episode 112 because somebody sunk the Waterworld toys for a couple of months. But anyway,
there was a hurricane that came through, like literally there was a hurricane that did.
Yes.
We'll get to that.
Yes, we will eventually down the line. So next episode's probably going to be a display case. But Mr. Devall, thank you for taking the time to join us. It is always so fun to podcast with you. I remember, I think it was I don't know, you were on one of the earlier episodes of ToyCast way back when, 7 years ago. I think we did the Men of Steel, where we were trying to talk about Superman toys in episode 78, and we ended up talking about anything else because there wasn't really much to talk about Superman action figures. Boy, any final thoughts from you, Josh, before I run through the outro?
So I know this is obviously not a goodbye to Devall by any means. Devall will be around. Devall, you're still keeping the Dave and Devall podcast for quite some time?
Oh, yeah. No, the podcast that was something Dave and I talked about when I told him, because Dave and I talked about all this stuff before I even made an announcement of any of it. But I had talked to Dave, and I was like, I don't want to do videos anymore. I kind of want to just step away. I kind of want to fade out into the sunset. But the podcasts, I said, are going to continue, continue period until probably one of us dies, honestly.
So this isn't goodbye by any means.
No. You can still hear Dave and I every week on David Devall's Toys Collectibles on Toy World Order. It's not necessarily the last video I do, because there's still a bunch of projects that I have on the computer on hard drives that I'd kind of like to finish up. The big project that I'm working on. And then I'm sure I'll pop up from time to time with Pixel Dan or at shows with people or even on Toy World Order itself, just because I happen to be there and somebody's got a camera on my face. But it's definitely not goodbye. It's
But I did want to say, like, coming from almost 9 years ago now, just shy of 10 years ago, where I started listening to your show. Your show was the soundtrack for my hour-long car ride to work and my hour-long car ride home. To go from listening to you and then awkwardly meeting you at a Kane County, and then
yes. Wait! You can't skip over that. What do you mean awkwardly meeting him?
It was actually more Dave than Devall, to be honest. That was so. There's Dave, Devall, Danny. There's a lot of D names, and of course, I go and meet him, and I will be honest, I thought Devall's first name was Devall for the longest time. So I go up and I introduce myself, and I saw them at my first Kane County, and they're people I have listened to, seen on videos, and now they're in person, and this is my big moment to impress them. Oh, hi, Devall and Dan. Dan. And Draper's response to me was, after I actually apologized and introduced myself, he's like, "Oh, what was your name again? Justin? Thanks, great." But no, this has actually been a very, very cool experience. A lot of this I've had the fortune of knowing already going into it, but it seems like almost a full circle, a little bit of, hey, man, this has actually been quite an experience to say. I was there hearing a lot of your early stuff. You got me through 3 years of a very long and difficult commute.
Right.
And now we're at this point. So I thank you for the hours, the endless hours of content and the work you've put in for probably very little profit or income out of that. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I have to say thank you to you as a fan, to Mike as a fan, to anyone who's ever listened to us that are fans, because it's always been the fans that Dave and I have had, that Danny and I have had, have always literally been probably some of the best fans in the world, because they're just amazing people. Every one of them that we've met and talked to have just been simply amazing. And I've loved, like I told Carrie, like I've loved this adventure. I've loved doing what I did for almost 14 years. I've enjoyed it, but just like when I was in the ring wrestling, and I thought, especially after hurting myself, ripping my ACL out of my knee, and then coming back and wrestling a couple times, I figured, what, wrestling, it's time to step away from this and do something else. Just like with wrestling, it's time for me to step away from being a toy YouTuber and go moving on to something else. Honestly, it's just time to continue the journey forward.
Absolutely, and Devall will be back on ToyCast because we have display cases and all kinds of stuff, and like we said, he's not getting rid of everything, and I'm sure he'll be buying some more stuff at some point.
Yeah, but it's strange though that the pile of stuff that I'm keeping looks really big, but it's because I've got it in. I've been using these paper boxes we get from work that are, they hold 10 reams of papers. They're big boxes. Well, I've got those loaded up with a bunch of stuff, and they're stacked up against the wall. And you look at it and go, "Man, that's a lot of shit." And I go, "Actually, it's not," because you look at it and go, "Well, those 2 boxes all have modern Transformers in them, and that's like 1 shelf worth. So it's really not a lot of stuff."
Yeah, no, it's not. And the reason why I will never, ever get rid of Devall, and it was only a scheduling conflict that Devall did not appear with Dave on episode 100, because my plan was to have you both on the same clip.
Yes, yeah.
But anyway...
Let's be fair, that would have been a 5-hour episode.
Yeah. In of itself, yes, that would have been the longest podcast, because at this point, that would have been 10 hours. So I believe it was our second or third GCRN award show that Toy World Order won for podcast or YouTube or whatever. And I love that you still have that banner up.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That was fun, because I remember winning that. And I remember so many people on your forums were like, "Who the hell are these guys and why did they win?" And it's literally because we told everyone that listened to us and that watched us, go vote for us. And they did. Everybody went and voted for us.
Hey guys, Devall here from ToyWorldOrder.com. Recently we won an amazing award. We won the GeekCast Radio Network's best favorite YouTube series. And it was a fan-based thing, and the fans really came out and voted for us as best YouTube series. So thank you to all the fans. It was a great award. We were super honored.
They say that success has many fathers, but failure is an orphan. An orphan named Jason.
Wait, what?
I would like to...
What do you got? What do you give me this? What is this?
It's my list. My list of people to thank.
Your list of people to thank.
My to thank people list.
The scroll is tied. Let's just tie that
Okay.
thing. Oh my god. Really?
Your part of success has many fathers that do not understand. Thank you for blocking my lights.
Holy crap!
Is the paper too difficult for you to manage?
You stop. It goes all the way to the floor. Me thank list.
Me thank list.
With a little puppet Devall, yay me there in the corner.
With my Superman set and my reward.
And me with it says "Grr me mean."
Yes, you are. Glad to agree.
Who is that? The Pickle Man?
That is the Pickle Man. The Pickle Man.
Why is the fire here telling me I'm stupid?
Because you're stupid.
Puppet Devall would like to thank.
Yes.
Conway Twitty. No interrupt.
Yes, we did. You like Beyonce. But thank you for not interrupting my speech.
It's not Conway Twitty.
If you like her so much, you should have put a ring on it.
It's Kanye West, not Conway Twitty, but I guess
I don't know what they do in private.
I guess you're close. The Academy of the Internets.
And Scientologies. Thank you for this prestigious reward.
The fans.
Yes.
And then, in parentheses, ask for money.
Maybe, we'll see.
What is Dirdides?
Dirdidas. He is the second most talented talented member of this ensemble. Not quite as talented as me, but a very talented young man who brings a lot to this group.
He's a dog.
Dirty Das? Dirty Das is a girl.
Oh, fair enough.
Just like royalty.
What is this? Mike Blajamich?
Mike Blancmange.
Mike Blanchard.
Sure, why not?
You owe him. He owes you food?
He said, winner, puppy dinner. I won. Where's my Denny Blackmange?
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. The Pickle Man.
Yes. We may not get along personally, but I respect his professionalism. And his money.
John or Leonard.
Yeah, he's got 2 names. What is up with that? Very shady, John. Or is it Leonard?
Band-Aid and Gerald.
Yeah, they've been with us from the start, but then they left, and they were a big part of this website before I came along and helped carry you guys. So thank you very much.
You'd like to thank Steven.
Steve! He's my best friend.
I don't even know who Steve is.
He's my best friend.
I don't... Firehair.
Yes. She's the heart of the team.
Fair enough.
And she hasn't killed me yet.
No, she has not. Number 11 on your list is Google Sock?
Oh, Googly Sock.
Googly guys.
You don't know who he is because he looks just like me, but sometimes he stands in as my stunt double. He's a good kid. Had a hard life.
Number 12 is Pappy. You'd like to thank Pappy Devall.
Yeah, it's a good one.
He'd like to thank Mike Izaznanzi.
That's not a very nice thing to say.
That's how you spelled it. He would like to thank the losers.
Yes, I would. I would like to thank the losers. I would like to thank...
Rap Battle Trailer Park and Bowling.
Boom, boom. I won. You lost. Go home, son. Boom, boom. I'm back. Boom. Who says about bowling anyway?
He would like to thank...
I'm a nerd. I really like bowling.
Al Gore, because him invent YouTube.
Him invented the YouTubes. The Al Gore, inventor of the YouTubes.
You'd like to thank Bigfoot.
Yep.
Elvis.
Because he's usually hanging out with Bigfoot. I'm surprised. Yes.
Patrick Soprano.
Because when we were in Columbus, we didn't have us whacked.
It's Patrick Sinatra. The I Pete, but no other Pete.
Yeah, who knows what he did. The one Pete, but not the other Pete.
The one Pete.
90s kids will get it.
Pretty Lady from Toyman.
I don't have a chance.
You don't have a shot.
I'm not have a shot.
Batman.
You don't know. Batman!
There's the Pickle Man with his pickle money. Apparently, Puppet Devall with a cape fighting the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, it was an epic fight.
You riding on top of a dinosaur with me saying stop having fun and apparently farting?
No, those are
the grass?
Stink lines around their buttocks. Got them.
Cheese.
Take note, Black Man, I like cheese.
And then apparently you and Bigfoot throwing poop at me. And then you, a bunch of flags, me, Bigfoot, and Pickle Man, and then it says games and kids.
6 flags.
Oh, 6 flags.
Yes, they're
Oh, because
numbered.
there are 6 flags there. There's a lot of names on this list.
There are another names on the list. A lot of people helped us get where we are.
Number 128 is Russell K. Because he starts every kiss. That's every kiss begins with never mind. Robert Hardefil, R.J. Smith, Rafael Padilla, Quincy Elementary, Watson MD. I'm not reading this list anymore. I'm not. Matt Booze with a ghost that says boo. At least you got Matt Boo's name right.
Well, yeah, obviously. It's very rude for me to tell him if I got his name wrong.
You think, kaboom, Nerdinator.
Yep.
You think John Solo, and he's got
his little Undertaker hat on, and scary bats flying all around, and he's asking to feel away.
Because John Solo apparently likes Depression and Darkness.
No, because he's the guy from Phantasm.
Kerry Godso.
Yeah.
David Williams.
Sure, him.
David Praying Mantis Gilman.
Yep, him.
Chris Creepo. Me.
Monk!
Monk, yes. Count Brian Orlac.
No,
he was a vampire.
Yes.
Andrew Mortimer, who is apparently a foreign devil.
Yes! But we love you anyway.
Benjamin Scott Spencer, Bo Clay, Bob Gilmer. Some of these names you got right. Bob Thorne, I'm very impressed. Alex McKay. Okay. Andrea Bree, if that's your real name.
I'm not so sure.
Will I Am Bruce West, who's Pure West.
Pure West.
The Empty Chair.
Yeah, that's not the Clint Eastwoods. The one that's a guy and the one that's a band.
You thanked the Geico Gecko,
yes.
Gordon Gecko,
yes.
and Gorilla Grodd all in a row, and then Clyde the Monkey. Who is Clyde the Monkey? Is that from...
He's the guy from Any Which Way But Loose.
I know.
And that's what made it to Clint Eastwood.
Gang, thank you very much for voting us Best YouTube Series and Geekcast Radio Network's second annual awards. We appreciate it very much. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. What?
You forgot a name.
I forgot a name.
I saved the best for last. You, my friend, the best for last.
Oh, is it really on there?
Yes, you missed it too, Donnie.
You did. You know, I wasn't so much worried that wasn't on the list. When I'm on the list as that other guy,
that's a
that hurts. Not only did you think someone below me, you think Osama bin Laden, and then you thanked that guy. And then you think
the big fat guy who hangs around and
but then
he's always like, Alex, zoom, patoo, G.I. Joe is there, derp, I have a dog. Nobody will ever love me. I will die alone in the gutter with my Star Wars toys, zoom, patoo. And then there's the other guy.
I guess I should be grateful, but I don't know what to feel at this point, gang. Thank you very much for voting us Best YouTube Series. We appreciate it. And here's to another year of ridiculousness, because that is what happens here. As you can see.
We are the champions, my friends.
I'm going to go burn.
And we'll keep it fighting till the end.
We are the champions.
Now I don't want to do it anymore.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
we appreciate it.
We love you.
You thanked Osama bin Laden before you thanked me. Unreal.
It was Time Out of the Year.
And it was the greatest thing because all these people were like, I've never heard of these guys.
If you've never heard of Jason Devall, Dave Draper, not necessarily to a lesser extent, but Pixel Dan, man, you need to do some internet researching, folks. Yeah. So, yes, thank you, Devall. And the other thing, the other quick thing before I run through the outro, because my memory is, I'm old, people. I'm really old. I'm not Draper old, but I'm old. My lovely ex-wife and I have to refer to her like that just in case the Social Security Administration is listening.
That doesn't sound suspicious at all.
No, it doesn't. But hey, at least, I said it correctly. We had the chance because we were going through Springfield because we at the time we were living up in Gurnee, Illinois. We were going through Springfield to get to Missouri, or Misery, as most people that aren't from that state would call it. And we said, hey, we're going to be in Springfield. I'm like, I know like 7 people in Springfield.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey. So Devall came out and had dinner with us that night. So that was awesome. Just a fun old time. Thank you for joining us here on ToyCast. If you'd like to get in contact with us or leave feedback for the show, there are several ways to do so. Visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can listen to and comment on all of our content. Send any email to feedback@geekcastradio.com. Here are all the ways you can listen to us nowadays: Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and any other place you consume your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter @GeekCastRadio is the network Twitter, @TFToycast is for the show. I am @TFG and Mike. Josh is @FloorBurger553. Devall, what is your Twitter?
You can find me on Twitter @PuppetDevall.
Become a fan on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/Geekcast Radio Network. You can also check out TF Toycast over there, as well as joining the Toy World Order fan group. So do that if you're into toy collecting and having awesome discussions and people posting, oh, one movie must go, or choose only one, or whatever. For now, I am TFG and Mike with
the FloorBurger. Mr. Josh.
Oh, me? That's me? Oh, and Jason Devall.
Thank God I edit this and it isn't live. Join us next time when we will be talking more toys here on ToyCast.
Hey, you two, knock it off!
Orko, what are you doing here?
Trying to sleep.
Orko, you've been asleep in the back seat all this time?
Yeah, I hope I didn't miss anything exciting.
The definitive story of Devall.
The Devall definitive?
I think I like mine better.
Fine. A digestive.
Josh has got a Green Day in his pants.
Oh, no.
You know, I actually had to come up with when we'll be talking more toys here on ToyCast, because I ended up stealing Keep Playing With Your Toys for like 3 episodes.
No.
I'm like, I gotta come up with something else.
That's funny.
See you later. Bye-bye.